Hello everybody. How are we all doing today? I've got a weird yellow bar. I don't know why it always does this. But anyways, we're gonna be ranking every Pyro character today in Genius Invocation TCG. With Calomon, who was a Prince player. Also, hi Bonnie. Welcome in, welcome in. Let me just change this to live chat. Yeah. So basically, this is the tier list. So like let me unmute on Discord side so that Kalamon can hear me. We don't have any like latency or anything. Discord. Tabbing between so many things is crazy. So like I don't know if we gonna just jump like right into the tier list. What do you think?
I mean, we could, but I feel like introductions are in order.
Fair enough. So introduce yourself then, I guess.
Okay, so I'm Kalman. Technically a Prince Cup player. Uh, I would say I kind of got in by luck, and I didn't make it very far, but I was there and I did get some wins. I did technically go through Serious Showdown, beat some players that are pretty good at the game.
I
Did
mean,
not took a game off both the series that I lost, so I know some things about the game at the very least.
I guess that like you only didn't get further because Double Favonius Library just kind of let you down.
No, there was also issues in my deck choice and my play, but I I would still consider myself good enough to know some things about this game.
I mean,
That's all that matters.
that's also really kind of fair. You do kind of cook, and by kind of I mean you do cook. So Florida Man says that they're just here to argue that Pyrolector's is S tier. So, well, that's the
We'll
second
see about
character.
that. Yeah.
I think let's just work in alphabetical order since they're in alphabetical order here at the moment. That'll probably just be
Okay.
easiest. And it gives us a good mix
Okay.
of like new characters and older characters because they're not in release order. But so
Yeah.
so let's start with Arlecchino. I would say like Arlecchino is good in the fact that she does actually do a lot. Her being able to have Bond of Life that is kind of like one of Stall's biggest weaknesses is them not being able to heal, I would say. So her just having a static ability to stop stall and benefit the aggro decks that she's in does just give her that ability to stall break straight off the bat.
Uh, I would say she is pretty good at stall breaking, yes, but I'm not sure how necessary that is when you consider the fact that most combo decks can already get through however much HP stall may have, and the decks currently present in the metagame, and that will probably be present for a while, that have the most HP are Crab, and they don't really care about health as much as they do shields, which it doesn't really stop.
That is
And
actually a
the
very
decks
valid point.
and the Pyro decks that would need extra help to break through stall, like say aggro, don't really want her as much as other Pyro cards that just go faster. I'm not saying she's bad, but I would say good is a fair assessment. I don't think she's anywhere above that, but I don't think she's below that. I do think she's a strong card. I do think she will have a spot eventually. She can have decks built around her. She can be used as a tool against other decks, but I don't know about right now.
That's fair. I think also another like really good benefit for her is that she's in a really good weapon type with polearm just having some of the best utilities, so that you could theoretically run her in a weapon package where she does just deal the damage you want her to deal and still buffing all of that. Because also, while she's got that passive that's kind of soul breaks and makes healing like not really a thing, it lets you have steadier breakpoints, but it also makes her own damage kind of just go up because she just consumes the bond of life that she's giving. So if they're not stalling, then, or anyway healing, then you are just buffing your own damage. And well, with that, with polearm, you can hit some seriously heavy numbers. I think like when I did my Olakino video with Fatui Cryo Agent, the Frost Operative, I think I was easily hitting for like 7 melts on a normal attack.
Yeah. Her damage is definitely very good, but I just don't think it's what you need necessarily. Like Pyro decks don't really struggle for damage, especially double
That is
Pyro
true,
decks with
because you got resonance to
uh,
just give you +3.
and many of them still run Bennett. Another character that is up for that may compete with Arlecchino for spots in her own decks is Lenny, as he covers Batui, he covers Pyro, he has very big hits of his own, he heals himself. I would say he also has better Pyro application, and I would say Bow is probably better than Polearm.
I mean,
So
with bow and polearm, you've both got the, I know Moon Piercer's the polearm, but I can never remember King Squire. They both kind of do the same thing, and those are really your utility ones. So
yeah, in that sense they are close, yeah. But in I would consider Arlecchino to have tools that are just not necessary. Her damage is high, yes. It's good as she is in the correct tier, in my opinion. I think she does deserve that spot. I think she does have powerful tools, and I think I think building a deck with her is not hard at all. I think you can definitely justify a spot for her, but I just don't think in the current meta game you have reason to be playing her over anybody else. So good seems correct.
that's actually very fair. I think she may even move down good a little bit, depending like where we put Liney and other characters, but right now good is a pretty much safe spot. Now we go for Mr. Pyro Elect over here, which Florida Man wants to argue is S tier. But I personally can't see any reason that we would ever run Pyrolector outside of a niche meme deck or pretty much anywhere, because they don't do a whole lot.
Yeah, that's about it. They just don't do a whole lot. A revive is nice.
Sure, but you've got other
But
characters with the revive, or
that's
in Pyro decks you don't even need the revive, because like I said, with
exactly.
double Pyro you tending to go a lot faster than what other decks do. So I guess what he does, 1 damage on a normal, let me look this up. He does 1 damage on a normal, 3 damage on a skill, and then
Yep.
his burst is
3 damage on a summon.
3 damage on a
A
summon, which
Deus.
deals 1 piercing, I believe.
Yeah, well, 1 pyro and 1 piercing to standby.
Yeah, deals 1
Well,
pyro, 1 pierce to all opposing characters on standby, and it's a 4 cost burst as well. 2 energy, but 4 cost, which
yeah.
is a little bit rough. Talent? Okay. What's this reflection of the talent does? If Abyss Lector Fathomless Flames equips the talent, then you get a shield, basically.
Yeah, it's a shield, and then when you break the shield, it deals 1 AoE damage piercing.
But
It's not
it's a 2 cost talent as well.
particularly.
If it was 1, I could maybe see, but for 2, it just seems like too much of an investment on a character that's not dealing enough damage at base anyways.
Yeah,
Like,
if you're looking for a tank, there's better options in Pyro,
Yeah,
namely
like the
Crab.
crab. Yeah. But I think
I just don't think he has anything going for him really.
to
I
play talent and burst, you're asking 6 pyro line dice, 2 energy to deal 4 pyro damage, 2 piercing damage to everyone,
yes.
which doesn't seem too great in my opinion. Especially when you've got Jinyan who does basically just that on a 3 cost burst for 2 energy.
Mhm.
Floridaman says
Yeah,
that their pyro deck is about shield stacking with tenacity, and the snake man, oh, Baiju. So that's
no.
burning and a whole bunch of shielding.
Yeah, I get the idea. It's a summon with the burst plus Baiju summon, makes for consistent burning. You can get some summon synergy there. I get the idea, but if you're gonna be going for a shield deck, shield and burn deck, just go crab.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or in that case, you probably just play Liney, because then you
Yeah,
get double
or
summon.
if you need a tanky summon, there's Dea. I
That is
and she
true.
gets it off immediately. The fact that it's on burst is the biggest problem, I would say.
Yeah,
If anything, if it was on skill, maybe he could be doing something, but obviously it would have to be tuned for a skill. But yeah, I
yeah.
just don't think he has any uses.
So
I would
so
put him in unplayable.
okay, I'll agree with that. Like, it sucks because he's such a cool character and he seems like he does a whole lot, but I think they really do need to buff most of the Lectors. Like Electro Lecter as well is kind of underwhelming with what it does. It's got a cool gimmick, but it's just kind of a little bit underwhelming. And
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
applies here as well.
There is an outlier, but he's not going to sell him, and so no need to talk about it.
Yeah. So now, like, we've got a character that sits pretty close in TCG, and that's just Amber. Like,
Yeah,
I think Amber just goes in unplayable as well because the only time I've ever seen Amber is when I'm playing AOC and people are just trying to do random Baron Bunny nukes.
yeah, but then the thing with those nukes is they can be done with
Literally
anybody.
anyone.
Technically. Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
Florida Man says, how would you even buff Lecter? 7
um,
HP?
I mean, you can start with a 3 cost burst, perhaps.
3 cost
You
2 energy
could,
burst for what they do seems fair, actually.
the fact that the f-
1 cost
I
talent.
one cost talent I feel like would be too much, given that it deals 3 damage, 2 shields. That's like 5 total health value.
Sure, but Abyss Herald literally has a 1 cost talent that messes you up by 2 dice.
True.
So
I mean, they could do a lot, honestly.
make Lecter skill
Uh,
do 1 pyro damage over time is also another suggestion. But then you're competing with La Signora, and you probably just want to run La Signora then, right?
uh, yeah, but I mean, it would be interesting if it's a Charlotte situation where it's over
Oh,
3 turns,
that is true. He could be
but
like a weird double hydro stall anchor where you go for melts as opposed to freezes if you want to be like slightly more aggressive. So damage over time could actually maybe be a good tweak.
yeah, I mean, you could do a lot with him. The way he is right now, it's also the fact that he just doesn't have an identity. It's just a summon and a revive. That's not really anything.
That's true. Like, I love how we went back to Lecter because Amber has
Yeah.
even less of an identity. Liney does what she wants to do while doing everything better, and like
I mean,
there is just no identity here.
Amber can be funnier
She
with
can.
her
That is true.
with her with her talent dealing what was it 4 damage and triggering Baron Bunny.
I think I'll have to look that one up. I've
I think
barely
it's when
touched
she uses a
Amber.
normal attack, it deals 4 damage and instantly explodes Baron Bunny. So you can do funny stuff. That's how the nukes come by. 2 damage from
um,
normal, 4 from talent. Like it can
where
be
is it?
funny, but I don't think it's ever good. If
It's
anything, if
uh
anything,
talent is 3 cost. When your active character is Amber, you equip the card obviously. After Amber uses this
you-
card, immediately use explosive puppet once. So that's her skill. After using normal attack, yeah, you discard the card and then Baron Bunny deals 4.
yeah. Honestly, if there's any reason to play Amber, it's that if you somehow get extra stacks on her summon, extra usages, she can decrease a decent amount of damage, but you don't really need that when you have better ways to tank. So I just
Yeah,
don't
she's
think she has a spot
it's like
anywhere.
Bia is a better tank than her and Lion is a better summon support than her.
Yeah.
So I guess she's maybe trying to do too many like too much at once. I think maybe her kit needs a little bit of a redesign. But even then, I'm not sure how exactly you would save it. Because Baron Bunny, like, I'm looking at it right now, and Baron Bunny reduces the damage that your active character takes by 2,
Yep.
and it's got 1 usage.
Yeah, like, that's
When
exactly why I said more usages could be good, but it would be. I honestly, I could see her if they print a bunch of usage increasing support.
something like, maybe that's something I should try her with, is People of the Springs, but that
No,
would give her
I
2
mean like
usages?
I mean something more consistent.
Okay, that's
I don't.
that's
I
that's
mean like,
fair.
but then also, even if you do that, 2 damage every once in a while, that's Millilith can give you that basically on anybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. That legitimately just makes sense.
I think another big problem is her burst just deals
No
2
damage.
pyro to the main
Yeah.
target.
Yeah, it's 2 pyro to main target, 2 PS to all opposing characters, which is worse than official burst.
Yeah,
They
it
could
is.
probably make her burst deal 4 and then 2 piercing, because then it would literally just be a pyro official burst. And official
Yep.
burst is actually really solidly good in a lot of cases.
Yeah, there's a reason it's 3 cost.
Yeah. That, or if you're gonna
Yeah.
do, you could actually give Amber a unique identity that you keep her burst the same, but you make it a 2 cost 2 energy burst.
Mm,
That
no,
way, like,
I just don't think. I think that if you need the burst, you can find a way to have more dice, but you don't really find a way to deal more damage. Like
that's true.
there's enough ways to gain dice. There's enough ways to draw cards. You can find what you need, but you can't really. The only way to increase your damage is Adeptus, and that's just too much. At that
Yeah.
point, just run a character that just deals more damage. If you want AoE and you need a decent amount of AoE, Xinyan is literally right there. But still
Yeah.
also prevents 2 damage.
That is also true. I forgot about that because it gives you 2 shield points.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Flutterman says that make her puppet stop 3 damage, but I don't think that's going to do anything because Lotus Crisps basically, that would just be Lotus Crisp on a skill, and Lotus Crisp never sees play now. You'll maybe play 1 copy in some combo decks that want to protect the anchor character, but there's just so many ways now to get around what was once probably one of the best food cards in the game.
Yeah. I mean, bullet pops it.
Yeah. Navia Bullet pops it.
That's all you really need, to be
Yeah,
honest.
Navia Bullet pops
That's why
it. Swirl damage pops it from something like Leeway Armory. Um, I'm trying to think. I don't think any pyro characters pop it on it, interestingly enough.
Shivers does.
Oh, right, Chef Bruce with the overload balls and the overcharge thing that makes it swap. But I think either way, make it do basically just a free Lotus Crisps, I don't think is enough. Because, yeah,
Yeah.
Lotus Crisps is just bad now. So I think,
Yeah.
like, Amber's just probably the character that's hurting for some kind of love. Like, which is sad because it's just like her main game. It's just sad.
I would argue she's probably the worst character on this list, yeah.
Probably. It's not like, I think, I'm gonna put Bennett in meta defining, and I want to hear your reasoning first, because when we spoke about this earlier, you were quite adamant that Bennett should be one of the best characters just in the game, period. So I need to hear this.
Well, when you look back at the game, first patch was a mess. It was just basically two combo decks. Well, you could argue if Genki is a combo deck, but that doesn't matter. The second they toned them down, and even then, to be fair, double pyro aggro existed.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
toned them down. Double pyro aggro was still a strong deck,
I
and
mean,
kept being strong
like
throughout the
my
game's history.
first deck, right, that I made for this YouTube channel was what, double pyro, where I used Diluc, Feshel, and Bennett. And like that video popped off because it was legitimately just winning matches left, right, and center. Because anyone who had a previous TCG experience coming into Genius Invocation could play it as a aggro deck, and like a really good aggro deck, and just delete people off the face of the map.
Yeah, Bennett just gives the tools that any aggro deck needs in terms of a damage increase for the games where you need it, healing once you have run out of steam to protect you and close out the game. He is Pyro, which gives you access to Pyro Resonance, and and those are big reasons why he has remained a staple of double Pyro for the entirety of the game's history. And then even in combo meta games, he finds a spot as the best damage buffer in the game. If you're looking for multi-attackers like Cube,
Oh
you
yeah,
go to
Cube
Bennett
Bim is
immediately.
just I think one of the things that actually makes Bennett super consistent is the fact that talent fishing is really easy. You either play Storm Terror's Lair or now the buff Stove, and just having his talent sort of nets you the best of both worlds in that you get the healing and the damage boost. So you're essentially mitigating what, 4 damage, or you're
Yeah,
changing breakpoints by like 4 damage a turn because you're dealing an extra 2 and still healing an extra 2 above that.
that's more than a skill for free for 2 turns.
Yeah.
Well, not free, but you get the idea.
So Florida Man says that Bennett should have a 3 per burst, so 3 energy burst, but gain a 5 cost prepare skills that he can do his charge attack in the TCG. That's interesting. I think a 3 per burst maybe will hurt him, but even then I think he'll still just be really good, because having a 3 cost 3 damage skill is already above baseline. I think most skills are either 3 damage or 2 damage, with the occasional ones being 1. And normally when it is a 1, it's that they sort of get a summon with it.
Usually it's 3 value with upside. So I would say 3 is the baseline. A lot of skills aim for some kind of upside, like multiple applications, summons, damage reductions. I would say 3 is a baseline. I don't think it's anything special. I think the burst is entirely the reason why he's good. And
So,
I think that if they did nerf him to 3 energy cost, uh, I do think he would have died in double pyro aggro, because they just don't really want to spend that much time on him just to get the burst.
I mean,
I
with Sapwood
but
Blade, I can see it, honestly.
Yeah, there are games where you just have Sapwood Blade, you start on him, you get his talent, and you're still gonna be okay with that. But I do think 3 cost, a 3 energy, 3 burst would definitely hurt him, as that is basically most, if not all, of what he does. But
That
I don't
yeah,
think
that's
it
true.
would kill him in combo decks, actually, because the buff is just so good that you don't mind paying more for it.
I think
So I
another really good thing is why I say that his skill for me feels above average is because the pyro related reactions have high multipliers, so it often feels like you're just dealing more than 3.
That's fair, yeah. And also, a funny thing about Pyro is they don't have that many straight up 3 damage skills. They have Diluc, they have Bennett, they have Lecter, and I think there is only one more.
You have Kutu Power Agent does 3, I think.
When buffed, yes. When he has his stack.
So Toma does 3. So I'll put the characters here for below average deal 3. Diluc does 3. Liney does 2? No, that's his charge, the one that summons, does 2.
Yep.
But his skill at base does 3. Hutar does 0. Lawmaster, I think, does 3? Or is 2?
He does 3.
Klee does 3.
I have no idea, honestly. I don't remember.
Toma does 2. Oh, okay. So
That's,
Toma does 2, apparently.
yeah.
Currently
2 and no
we're
shield,
rating
which is still
Bennett.
3 in a way.
Okay, fair.
But
That's fair. But I think that's 6-3.
actually,
Yanfei does 3, I believe.
does she?
Maybe.
That would honestly be surprising to me. I'm pretty sure it's 2 and some sort of a buff. If it is 3, then I am very much in the wrong. There are a decent amount of 3 damage. Oh, she does.
That's
3
all who
and
do
3
3.
and above.
Lourdes.
Okay, yeah. So Bennett is not that special.
Yeah,
The 3
like
damage is normal.
he's one of 6 characters, and there's only 18. So basically, 1/3 of Pyro has 3 damage
Okay.
skills.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, that is definitely that is an upside if you're trying to aggro your opponent down, but he's not as special as I thought, honestly. 3 is still, it's not bad, but it's baseline. So
But yeah, his
Diluc has
his
that and
buff
he's not
his
really
buff
doing
is just
anything.
crazy. So I think I would put him somewhere between consistently good. The only reason I wouldn't put him in meta defining is because he himself has never defined a meta. He's always kind of been like one of the supporting characters for another character that has defined the meta.
I agree, actually. I do think, funnily enough, I think he's one of the best characters in the game, but I don't think he's ever meta defining. As I think he's just the best supportive piece, and honestly, those are the ones that stick around the most.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. DPS has changed, but your like healers and your sub DPSs, those generally when they're built well, then they really do just work. But yeah, I don't think Bennett has you've ever looked at a meta and been like, Bennett is ruining this meta. You're always like, Electrocube is ruining this meta because Bennett. Or XYZ aggro deck is ruining because Bennett.
Absolutely.
So I think top of consistently good. I won't move it any lower than consistently good, but I think top of consistently good is where he lives.
Yeah, I am absolutely not putting Bennett and Arakino in the same tier. As good as she
Not
is,
a
they're
chance. No.
consistent, but yeah.
By the way, I'll be rating power of characters in draft or deck building. 100% deck building. Draft comes with its own intricacies and things like that, and is often very much dependent on how the meta of the draft is going. But in terms of deck building, you have a lot more control and you can really bring out the actual strength of the characters. So it's just a lot more fair to the characters themselves to put them into actual deck building categories rather than draft.
Yeah. And draft is a lot of the times the best characters there are just the ones with the bigger number. So
Yeah, you just often, like, when the heated battle mode shows up, you often just draft, like, the really, really strong characters, and you never go for a specific character unless you like that character.
yeah.
So, next we have Chevreuse. Chevreuse, I would say, is niche. I think Chevreuse is the definition of niche because when she came out, she was supposed to be the overload support. And you see her sometimes, like Sino Overload, I think was good for a little bit on release, where she kind of did a few things, but other Pyro characters just kind of like Liney or Dia would just kind of do what she did, but better by providing more support. The fact that her overcharged balls that you get from Overload are considered a combat action and cost 2 of the same dice kind of hurts when you consider that Navia's is kind of just like in magic terms an instant speed do a thing for 1 dice.
Yeah, I do think they have to cost two because they are elemental, but
That is true, but they shouldn't be like they I don't think they should count as a combat action. Like yes, they do apply, but physical is technically an element as well. Because you can do funny things like Navia with Shatter. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen a Navia Shenhar deck that's like a meme deck. Your bullets end up doing what, like 3 damage or 5 on a Shatter, and that's not even considered a combat action. So I don't think her like bullets should just be considered combat actions. I think they should just work the same way as Navia. Keep them at 2 cost, yes. But otherwise, she doesn't really do much aside from that. Her burst to put the secondary explosive shells, it's so easy to play around. Like, it is just easy to play around.
yeah, I do think you need to keep it combat action as well because you said there's a buff for physical, but you have to remember if it's in an overload deck and there's Electro on the enemy, that adds an extra 2 damage. Pyro Resonance adds an extra 2. You cannot have overload, switch the deal 5 damage, switch the opponent to the next character, and then deal 5 damage again or something. You just can't allow that. I do think they are balanced how they should be. I think if you're gonna buff anything else, it's gonna be if you're gonna buff anything, it's gonna be something else. I think her bows are powerful.
Oh,
I just don't. I just think they're too conditional
okay,
because
that's fair. That's fair.
they specifically need overload, which would require you to run either some kind of setup in your overload aggro deck, which you don't want. You would rather just have a pyro character that just deals damage
Yeah, that's true. That is
immediately.
just true.
And if you're doing a combo deck, it's just not worth to be going for Chevreuse. There's much better pyro characters for rainbow sort of strategies, like Lenny, for example. I'll say.
So Max says that Chev is enabling one shots for electric characters in Pyro Resonance and has funny interactions with a burst and cookie swirl. So they would rate average. I think niche is still the correct call because you're only ever playing her in an overload deck. Like only ever. So you're restricted immediately to having Pyro and Electro in your team with one more. And if you're playing Kuki with a swirl, you might as well just be playing the mid-range deck with Janyun and La Senora, or pretty much your choice of whatever other anchor you want for Elemental.
I mean, see, I don't think just overload puts her in niche. I think the fact that overload typically takes the form in aggro decks is more so what puts her in niche because there's no real overload combo decks or overload discard decks more particularly because
That is
you don't
true.
wanna set her up for an overload and then switch to her to use your skill to then play the thing because all that really does is turn her skill into 3 damage, 1 heal.
Yeah.
That's just not enough. So if you want to use it, you would really have to use it in a way our in a way for free in this card with cards
Yeah.
that would give you a benefit at the cost of discarding you turn it instead of a cost into an upside. But currently not only is the discard support kind of lacking, if you are gonna be playing it, there's only what is it? One Pyro and one Electro character that support discard. No, there's two Pyro characters that support discard and one Electro. I just don't think that's enough right now. I think
Yeah.
it's. I think she is. She can be very good in overload discard, but I don't think that's a deck that will exist for probably years, if given how few cards they make per patch.
Yeah, that's fair. Windbound says, okay, but Overload Soul is a niche interaction in itself. If a character only works in really specific decks, then it's niche. The whole point of her kit is tied to be one, or is tied to one reaction. I agree on that. That's why I say that she's the face of niche for Pyro characters. Because even her talent says that to use her talent, your deck can only contain Pyro and Electro characters. If it doesn't, then you just can't even play her talent in the first place, and she's the only character that I can think of that has such a restrictive talent card.
Yeah, I would honestly, if anything, I would argue her talent is the biggest reason you would play her in like a not even in generally her decks, but the only thing that makes her even remotely good in aggro decks is her talent, given that it just gives 2 damage for 2 cost and it can stack up over time. But I just the fact that it's conditional does hurt. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. So yeah, niche doesn't, like, in this tier list, niche doesn't mean terrible. Niche is just maybe I should put niche below literally unplayable, because niche is a weird tier in that it's just hard to rank the characters,
Or
because niche.
maybe above average. Because it's not quite, because it's good under a condition. Do you know what I mean?
So like here, have it as the nice middle tier.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that makes sense, because like niche is very hard to evaluate, because like you said, as soon as a certain good deck shows up, then she does good things, but it's very meta dependent. That's the weird thing about niche decks.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
then let's keep niche over here.
yeah.
Let me change some colors. Because I had like a weird theme with these colors of like, you're starting out cold and then you're getting like warmer as you get up to the top. Like that's why literally unplayable is just gray, and then like you're
Fair enough.
slowly warming up to the meta defining cards. That was my funny idea
It's
behind the
Pyro.
tier list.
It's Pyro.
Yeah. And then when I do like cryo, I'll have like the colors inverted or something stupid like that.
Fair. Fair.
Well, I've done cryo already, but point is,
Yeah. I did.
um, oh, that would work. Yeah, that you're like cooling down time. Yep, that would work. Now Liney, I would just put Liney behind Bennett on consistently good, because
Yeah.
you're either playing one of these two characters in a Pyro deck, generally speaking.
Uh, yeah. Uh, I would say they do fit different roles, and if you're going for a Pyro character, it's one of them. When you're just going for some good characters, yeah, I would say we should probably elaborate on why, but
Oh no,
I
I
don't
will
think there's
now.
much debate.
No, like I think he's just consistently good. Also, Maxwell, this is Calamon, who is the Prince God player that they did introductions in the beginning of the VOD, but they're essentially the resident. This card is good. This card is bad. Easy someone in the Discord that you can talk to when they're around, and you'll generally get really, really good feedback on your deck ideas, or sort of like how something will perform. I
Yeah.
personally trust their opinion. So, but yeah,
Uh,
with Liney, I
yeah.
think the
I,
thing that makes Liney consistently good is the fact that he has 4 skills just to start.
that absolutely is the fact that you get a payoff in the form of the fact that you get a setup skill and a payoff skill, the fact that you don't have to use energy on your payoff. like other characters stack up them. Like let's say, what would be a good example? Fischl. She has a good setup skill, right? She has a good burst, but if she really wants to use that big burst, that big damaging burst, she needs to use that skill 3 times, and she really doesn't want to. Linny has the option of using his skill, of conserving his energy for when he wants to use it, and still having a big burst.
Here's the scary thing is you don't actually even have to use his burst because his
Yeah,
actual elemental skill is even more a burst than what his actual burst is.
yeah. In some way, his burst is just a better version of his other skill, of
Of
his
the charge
charged
attack.
attack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, no wait, sorry. I lied because it's not a charge attack, it's a normal attack. Because there are niche there are interactions with it, like with flowing rings, where you can put flowing rings online and you draw the card off of his secondary skill.
Well, yeah, it's a charge attack in the form of the regular gameplay, but here it acts as a normal attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, like you're dealing 2 and then setting up a summon with 2 charges, which means that his skill at base deals like 4 across 3 turns.
Um,
I think Prop Arrow has 2 charges.
no, it's one.
Okay, well then
That's one.
you're dealing 3 over like a turn.
Yeah,
So
it can stack up to 2, but yeah, it's one.
so it's a 3 damage normal attack,
Yeah.
which in terms
Yeah.
of normal attacks is very much above average, considering that the average is 2.
And it has 2 applications,
Yeah,
which is better than a regular 3 damage skill.
that is actually true because there are certain situations where you start on his skill, like going back to old finale. You go like open with Liney, do his normal attack, set up Prop Arrow, switch to Fischl, hit them with Oz, and then you're dealing 2 on app, 3 official, so that's 5 total, and then end turn you're dealing another 5? 4.
Yeah, if they don't switch, yeah. You deal 1 from Lenny, you deal a 3 from Fischl, and then on end turn you deal 4. So it's a total of 8 damage if they don't swap, yes.
Yeah, which is most of a character's health on the first, and
No,
then you're forcing
it's
them
9.
to swap as
It's
well.
9, actually. But
Oh, that
you
okay.
almost deal a full character worth of health with
Yeah.
just 2 characters.
And if they have to, then they do just go for it. So thank you, Ezra, for the hydrate. I will do that right now. And like we said,
absolutely, you have to consider the fact that, there's once again, as all pyro characters, there's pyro resonance. He's not played very much in double pyro decks, but the fact that he has that option, the fact that he can be used as setup with the normal attack, the fact that he can be used as a burst with a 6 damage skill, possibly 8 with the resonance, possibly 10 if you add on the food fish and chips, right? Or no?
fish and chips is the one that reduces tandoori chicken.
The fact
So
that he can deal 10 damage with 1 skill is
I mean,
ridiculous.
he can deal higher than that because if he deals 3 at base plus 1 for every stack, and you can have 3 stacks, that's 6, 9 with tandoori. And then if you're hitting them for an overload or a melt or vape, then you're hitting like 11 damage. If you include his talent in that, I think that's what I was going to say now, is instead of Pyro Resonance, I think the really scary thing about Liney is his talent. Because he has such an, I think out of all Pyro characters, aside from Yoimiya, his talent is just absolutely insane.
Yes. That is, funnily enough, I don't recall a time where he has been played in a double Pyro aggro deck, but I do remember a double animal in the form of a Tuizan. Where because you spread so much Pyro, the biggest problem with his talent is usually that you don't really have Pyro usually on the enemies. Like, you apply it with him and then you switch off. But in decks where you swirl all the time, he always has Pyro on the enemies basically, and he can get a free 2 damage every turn
Yeah, easily.
playing for starting with Prop Arrow, as the talent plays Prop Arrow,
I
which
think
is
that was one of the
really
scary
good.
things about Fatuizan, like you said, is because you spread that Pyro, but you ended up in a situation where you would often just play Farazan's talent and his talent, so you just got like put in this blender where no matter what you tried to do, you were just taking damage from somewhere, and then like end of turn you would be taking even more damage if you set it upright, because then Prop Arrow would apply Pyro, and then Farazan summon would just hit them again and spread that Pyro.
Yeah. Uh,
Oh, that is an
I mean,
important point. Maxwell brings up that you can put King Squire on him as well, which is actually really, really valuable.
yeah, that was a thing in exactly for Tuizan. That is a big reason why he was an option in the deck. Yes.
And it's like we
He
said
is
with Olakino, he's Fatui as well, which gives you access to Fatui Resonance if you
exactly.
really want those in like niche decks. But
That is why I compared them mostly. It's Fatui, it's Pyro, it's a stacking up damage dealer that can heal up. It's Lenny does everything that you want from Arlecchino. Maybe not as
yeah,
well as her at times. She can definitely be more of an anchor, like a consistent DPS, but you don't necessarily need that.
I think
I do
Liney's even
think
then a better
he's
DPS than her because he just does so much and he has multiple applications.
yeah, it's just that he takes time. Like if you want to set up a big turn, you don't really you you have to stack him up. She can kind of just do it automatic.
Sure,
But
but the
yes,
problem with her is that you have to open on her a lot of times
yeah,
to get
yeah.
those Bond of Life built. Whereas Liney, you can use him once, twice during a match and then come back to him as the endgame carry. And I don't think a
Oh,
lot of
absolutely.
characters, especially if you have his like talent card, I don't think a lot of characters actually get to the point where they can just 1v1 a Liney.
Uh, I mean, yeah, if he has stacks, he can definitely shut down 1v1s. Because 6 damage, 3 heal is ridiculous.
Or
Honestly,
even
that's 9 value.
even then, if you're just going like, if he has no stacks and you're going like 2 for prop arrow, then you're healing for 1, you just kind of like can mess up breakpoints really, really well.
Yeah.
So I think just under Bennett, I think my argument is that he should be tied with Bennett. But I think Bennett edges out the case here just absolutely minorly. Like historically, these are
Yeah.
just two such really insanely good characters who will always have a home somewhere.
I do think both of them haven't left since they have entered the metagame, but Lenny has just not been around for as long, so
Yeah,
you can
that's
make the
fair.
case for either. I personally would make the case for Bennett more, but we'll see with time if the game speeds up whether he keeps up. For now, I think
Yeah,
he's the better one, but right now, but that could change.
yeah.
That could change.
It's like Winban says that he's one of the most flexible characters, and to me,
True.
that for me is what edges the out over Bennett, or but I would say edges him out over Bennett is just generally like when I build Magic the Gathering decks or GNGS Invocation CCG decks or Shadowverse decks, whatever deck I'm building in any card game I'm playing, I tend to go for cards that are slightly worse than their meta counterparts, but tend to have more flexibility for the niche corner case scenarios. And I normally get there by doing that.
Yeah, I absolutely. I I think he's a fantastic card, and honestly, we spent a lot more time than we needed to explaining why he's good. Because, I mean, maybe some people in the chat were not familiar with why he's so good, but in my mind, he just automatically goes kind of like Bennett in consistently good. I
Yeah,
don't think there's a
that
debate.
makes sense. Maxwell says
Now,
that
what are
Liney over Bennett, he's more consistent, and Bennett really mostly his burst, but they have different use cases. Maybe it's a play style thing, which
yeah,
is fair. Like,
They fit two different use cases. Definitely two different. Uh, like Bennett is never really. Uh, Bennett is not really a sub DPS in a way. Like
So
Linny is Linny does set up your other characters, does work in tandem with them, but Bennett is more so used as a supportive character.
So to me, here's an argument, right? On why Bennett just edges out the case here again. Is because when you see a deck, an opposing deck with Bennett, you know you need to try and snipe the Bennett down. Otherwise, you're going to have a very rough mid game to late game. Whereas Liney, you normally don't have that initial like fear value.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lenny, well, you fear Lenny once he gets a lot of stacks,
But
or
you fear
once he
him
has
off
a
the bat.
weapon or a talent. Yeah.
Bennett just shows up and then people look at him and he's like, okay, I have to snipe Bennett because if my opponent gets burst, especially with talent, then like the game is just kind of over for me unless I kind of just get what I need to do.
Either way, they are right next to each other in practically the highest tier. Meta defining is its own thing.
So now here's something. How would we rate Zhang?
Easy. She has one deck. It's niche.
But she's always been consistently good.
In what?
Any
RXN?
RXN had such a meta prevalence that maybe I'm just thinking of Zhang being just
RXN did
good.
not have a meta prevalence is the thing. RXN popped up late into 3.7, 3.8. I think it was 3.7. It was arguably the best deck. You could definitely argue that, but even then, I just don't think it stayed for that long. It kind of disappeared the second we got better options. Like the
Like
meta,
Liney.
we got so many. No, not necessarily. The second we got more good card decks, like AEC popped up, and I saw a lot less RXN all of a sudden.
That's
and then after
fair.
AEC was dethroned, we went to a metagame that should theoretically favor RXN. It's a rainbow deck. It should use hyper magic pretty well, but the other hyper magic decks were just so much better that it didn't. It could compete. People did use it. I have seen it ever since people discovered it. I have seen it recently. I've seen it in all sorts of metagames. It is a deck that is good consistently, but it is basically her only good deck.
That's fair. To me, what makes her a good character and why I would put her in good tier, not niche, is because her skill and all the damage, like all the damage she has, kind of like is above average when you consider Pyro characters. Like yes, Gooba doesn't do initial damage, but you've got a 2 usage summon that deals 2 damage each hit, so you're dealing 4 damage in 2 instances, which is already a 4 damage skill, which is above most other characters. And her burst deals total 7 if you're not reacting over 3 individual instances.
Yeah, I do think. Well, here's the thing: her skill does deal with 4 damage, but that's over 2 turns, right? And then, if you want to set up her burst, you really don't want a normal attack with her. You really don't want to wait to get value out of a second skill cast, so you need to get energy on her through calcs or something. And so that's a lot of setup to get a burst that wants you to do more afterwards. Whereas
That
if
is
you
fair.
want
That
just
is fair.
sheer damage, you would rather go for other options in aggro decks like Glee, for example.
That you know what, that is actually fair.
Zhang has been around since I believe 3.3. I believe since the launch of the game.
She's been quite early,
not,
yeah.
She has not seen play outside of combo decks that specifically want her for high reaction damage.
Yeah.
Other combo decks that would rather just have Bennett for buffs, but specifically RXN utilizes her she specifically fits very well into RxN. And I did see somebody in chat point out that some people may not know what RxN and Hypermagic are.
Yeah.
RxN is Raiden Zhangling Nahida. It is one of the first rainbow decks that popped up since 3.7, which aimed to buff them up. It is a combo deck that specifically utilizes Zhangling very well in combination with Raiden Summon and Harsh Summon while they're setting up. Raiden can set up the energy for the other two's bursts because they're exactly two. They can utilize energy increasing cards to speed run through their bursts.
I'm actually pretty sure here, right, that I have a 60-second short on how to play RxN in 60 seconds.
Perfect.
That covers. So basically, if you hear any terminology that you don't understand, just go to the 60-second playlist that I've got on the channel, and I've probably covered the deck in some capacity. Like with AEC, DX20DX said that RxN, AEC, and Hypermagic. So I've literally got the two videos next to each other: how to play Agent Electrocharge in 60 seconds, how to play RxN, which is Raiden, Zhangling, and Nahida. I've got Shenamo, I've got Bin, I've got what else we've got? Roy Mia, we've got Mew, I've got Kaching Overload, I've got NEC. So like
but the most important term probably that you need to know is Hypermagic, which is decks built around
which I also have a video on.
Exactly. And that's a pretty good one, honestly.
I've got a literal whole video explaining, like, that video took me like 3 weeks to make. Probably a little bit longer, talking about how Gilded Dreams is just such a nutty card before they actually nerfed it.
Absolutely. And yeah, honestly, Zhangling should have taken better advantage of Gilded Dreams, but most of the lists I have seen since its release did not even use it, funnily enough. They stuck to the old method of just rushing energy. They just wanted energy and energy alone because they already had the resources they needed otherwise.
Also, yeah.
The whole point is Zhangling just has the one deck which she is really good in, but it is just the one deck.
Yeah. On a quick side tangent, please keep chat in English. I can speak some other languages, but I would prefer chat in English just as a, like, please. Also, 20...
They did not say anything bad, by the way.
That's completely fine, but I mean, just like, in principle, I think a lot of streamers prefer like whatever language to be just the
absolutely,
whatever language is being spoken, because it's easier for people. 20DX says that Gilded is arguably still nutty, and I will not even disagree with that, because, like,
yes,
the card is just really good, but I don't think it has such heavy meta defining presence as it used to.
You still run it, just not in the sense of combo turns that give you 20 dice.
Yeah, 100%.
I think just run it for an extra 2 or 3.
Shadow of the Sand King sees, I think, a little bit more play at the moment, where the people obviously like or normally are going to Shadow of the Sand King 1 Gilded Dreams in your like rainbow packages, just because you're tending to draw more cards. I think Shadow of the Sand King was such a slept on card, and then it just kind of like people figured out it was good, and now it is just kind of a really good card. Sure, you don't get the dice from it, but you're consistently getting draws.
Absolutely. At worst, it's usually a strategize when you play it. 1 draw and then 1 draw immediately after the same turn.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like, back to Zhangling, where would we put her? Like average or niche or
niche? She is really good. Don't get me wrong. She is really good, but in one deck. So I would say that's niche.
You know, that's a valid argument.
I think she is over Chevreuse because she has a deck that has actually performed well.
So, like, the reason I would still put Chevreuse over is because, like I said earlier when we were speaking about Chevreuse, that she is just the face of niche decks. With the hyper-specific talent, like, she just screams niche.
Yeah, but I just don't think she performs as well currently. Uh,
Sure.
I
That is a fair argument. But like, I guess that's the tricky thing. Is like, how do we put this?
I just think Xiangling is better. Like you tried to argue that she's good rather than niche. She has her uses. Traverse
So
currently kind of doesn't. So I I think put her in niche for the fact that she can be good, but Xiangling is definitely supposed to be honestly probably the best card in niche. I'm not currently
probably
skimming through
that's
it.
the thing.
I'm not seeing better ones.
Uh, I mean, does being more flexible equate to being better? Not necessarily. But it's like here's the funny thing, right? This is why I'm gonna keep it this way, is because this just looks better.
It's fair enough, but yeah,
Having them like this
I
kind
don't
of just
think
looks jank. Having
I
them
don't
look like
think
this, nice look.
yeah. I don't think the flexibility really matters when we're talking about a character that has only ever appeared in one deck. The flexibility will might matter eventually, but as
Yeah,
we're talking about
that's very
now,
fair.
it
So
doesn't.
like, I think let's skip a let's just shift these two around because Yoimiya is probably gonna be a whole lot of discussion. So let's do Yanfei. I think
Don't think she
Yanfei
is.
is like below
I
average.
yes, absolutely. I
She
don't think she's unplayable by any means, but I do think
she's worse Klee.
is.
She doesn't really do
Exactly.
anything that you wouldn't just be playing Klee for. So I think she suffers the same thing like Amber, where she just suffers an identity crisis. But like, yeah. But Yanfei crawled so Klee could run, but Klee came out before Yanfei. That's the only
Exactly.
problem, is that Yanfei came later. She's almost got no identity aside from being a 4-star version of Klee, which is actually really sad in my opinion, because she is such a cool character to play around with. But like,
You know what's funny about Yanfei? She has one of the best draw engines in the game, but
that is
you have no
actually
use
true.
for it.
That is actually true. So
She has uses that really aren't necessary. She has an identity actually. She is not lacking that. It's just that I don't really think you have a reason to run her over Klee, as the aggro decks don't really need that much more draw. And
yeah,
combo decks
that's fair. You're
with
dead before the draw masses.
other characters.
Yeah.
You,
So
yeah, below average is
she's not
exactly right.
unplayable without weapons. That's the nice like really nice thing about her, is that she does still do solid damage. But if you're going to run Yanfei, you just want to run Klee. That's the problem, is you can only play 3 characters in a deck. And when you're competing for deck slots, you kind of want the character that just edges out that slight little bit of advantage. So Klee.
Yeah.
I think that's not all I can think to say on her, is that she fills the same slot, but just being marginally worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's the thing, Windbound, is that the dice discount is on Klee as well. Like,
Yeah,
Klee,
the funny part is her dice discount is only on burst. The reason Cleese is so good is because she gets it immediately.
yeah, she can do skill into a charge attack, which works really well with Covenant.
Yes.
Yeah, where you just like you go skill, oops, you're out of dice. Your opponent thinks they're safe, and then you're like, oh no, I've actually got 2 more damage right here in your face.
Yeah, we'll get to it when we talk about Klee, but Covenant and the fact that her discount is on skill allows her for some first turn kills on a character,
Yeah.
which Yanfei does not have access to.
Yeah. It's like, now here's the thing with Yoimiya. I think Yoimiya is probably the best character in good. Because if you're playing a Pyro-based combo deck that you're aiming for an OTK, Yoimiya is just the best. And with her normal attack, like, not with her normal attack, with her talent card, you can get a first turn KO. She synergizes insanely well with normal attack reductions. The fact that she's got a 2-round burst after you actually burst. So it's 3 damage on the burst itself. 3 cost 3 dice energy. Yeah, 3 dice, 3 energy for a burst that has 2 rounds and is really, really abusable by other characters that do well with normal attack reduction, like Ayaka, Yellen, Ryosley, Alhaitham. Basically any normal attack focused character that can react with Pyro, she just wants to be there.
Yeah, I agree with you so much that I think good is crazy. She's meta defining.
You argued with me, so like I can pull up chat logs like when we spoke about this.
Yeah.
Like, so did
I
you
just-
think about
I
it a
think
bit
she's-
more?
No, I still listed her as top 5.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that you cannot go without mentioning 1.1.
Yeah, Ayamiya in 1.1 is just, she's always been good, and I think Hoyo is very aware of how good she is, because the second that they print a good character, like Ayamiya was a brutal deck in 1.0, and then she kind of like faded away, and then they released Royalsley, and then like she just kind of did this thing. Royalsley came out, people were like, oh, this is Ayamiya but better, because now you have hyper magic and Royalsley is self-built in normal attack reduction.
Even before he came out, I saw some people testing Rainbow Yoimiya decks with like Nahida and someone else. I don't remember who. But
That's actually makes an interesting sense.
I don't think it was particularly good, but I saw honestly better players than me considering it.
I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense.
As in saying it could have potential. I think if you're gonna put her, I think if you're gonna dock her down because she only existed in 1.1 and then returned for one deck, that's gonna be niche rather than good. But if you're gonna argue that she has the versatility to put her in good, then straight up put her in meta defining.
I mean that's fair. 20DXO is like, Kole Mia, my beloved. Next comment, rip Kole Mia.
Oh, I have never heard of Kolemiya, but oh,
Well, the fact
yeah,
the fact that we're still
1.0
using Ayamiya and
the-
Royamiya, it's pretty good.
yeah, the 3.3, the release, Kole talent. Yeah. I remember it actually.
That sounds like a really funny and spicy deck, honestly. But no, I think like there's no argument for Yoimiya to just be anything but either consistently good or meta defining. Because
Yes.
she's a threat. Like, you see her and you know some degeneracy is coming. Like, you just know some degeneracy is coming.
Well, here's the funny thing. I don't think she's consistently good. I think she pops up and is disgusting, and when she's not disgusting, she's bad. So I think she's between meta defining and niche.
Why I would put it in
What-
consistently good is because things like Chef Mao, or so now we have so many normal attack reduction cards. We've got Chef Mao that basically feeds into Northern Smoked Chicken and Minty Meat Rolls. We've got Gladiator's Triumphus, which is the new tech card. We've got Legend of Vanessa. Like, there are just so many cards. And like 20DX says, she can just pivot as a vape carry. So if you don't go Rio OTK, then you just go like Yoimiya skill, normal attack with Northern Smoked Chicken, swap to, or even just do 2 if they swap, and then you go onto Yellen, and then you just kind of like have her as a reverse vape carry, which does work really, really well. That is true, but
The thing is, she had that with Ayamiya as well because that deck ran Chongyon, which could give you cryo infusion, and you could run it with her skill. So, like, there were alternate routes before as well. But both of her decks, she has a lot of synergy with. She has a lot of tools to play with, just like Zhang Ling.
that is fair.
The difference is the reason I would put Yoimiya in meta defining instead of niche is because her decks were actually meta defining when they popped up.
Okay, that is a very valid point. I think another point that's actually really good for her that I just thought of is the fact that she breaks Pancration. You just turn Pancration into Pot of Greed, and if you're getting to play Pot of Greed in a deck, then you're kind of really loving life.
Yeah, kinda. But
Uh,
I saw somebody in chat say she fought to Electrolector though.
I
If you're
was,
playing Electrolector, you
I,
have way bigger worries.
I was
You would
just about to say that, yeah.
you're probably gonna be losing to other decks. It's not a wise idea to run a bad character for one matchup, even if that is true, which I'm not sure that it is.
I don't think it's true
But
because
yeah,
then they just kind of freeze. They kind of like the big benefit and why I think Roy Mia is still just a really good deck, and maybe why it's not popping up in the meta as much is because it's such a difficult deck to pilot into a lot of decks. If you kind of press the gas too fast, then you end up in a situation where you don't have the resources to eat through something like Crab or any kind of like more mid-range deck. But if you do know when to press the gas, you do just kind of win within the first 2 turns. And you don't even have to start on your Ymir to do that. If you run into somebody and they're running Lecter, you can probably just go between Yellen as the backup option and Freeze, or just whittle them down with a combination of Freezes, Melts, and Vapes.
yeah. Uh, I do agree with the people that said that the weakness is aggro, that you can kill off the combo pieces and
Yeah,
it makes it harder to function. That is more of a matchup chart kind of thing, not a specific deck matchup, but a more
yeah.
archetype matchup. Which I do agree. The deck obviously has weaknesses, as all decks do. I don't think there has been any deck in history that is 70-80% win rate. We're talking about meta defining as in
I would
60, which is still really impressive.
I would argue that La Senora Hyper Magic with Jet, like with unnerfed original Jet, where you were running like La Senora Thunder Manifestation Mona, that deck was insanely difficult to beat, and I think that's why it showed up so much at Prince Cup. Like, it was just the deck to beat.
Yeah, here's the funny part. I don't think that was that high of a win rate because other decks could also run Hyper Magic and could beat it by luck, which they lucked out a decent amount of the time.
Okay, sure, but
So
that's with luck. That's expecting everyone to ting roll. Like,
and sometimes they do. That's what matters.
that's
Whoever
fair.
looks out wins at the end of the day.
So I'll argue about Whale because I honestly think that yes, Whale got nerfed. I don't think Whale was ever actually a nutty card. I think it was just a thing of like with MES or whatever, where people just like a lot of casuals didn't know how to play around Whale, and then Whale just kind of shows up and eats people.
Didn't Whale show up for like one patch and then they nerfed the beasts?
Yeah, and then Whale still did stuff.
Yeah.
It got Kaching 100% ban rate just by existing. Okay, yeah, I can see that. You said you already rank Cryo? That is in a different video. Like, I've got a whole video that is not, how do I put it? This is very much like a live stream podcast discussion style doing ranking. The other one is more structured and like, this is just the top 6. I didn't rank all the Cryo characters. I may go back to that if this is popular enough, but yeah. Now imagine unnerfed Conwhale still in the meta. I don't think it'll do much, honestly, because it dies to Swirl decks. Like, it just dies to Swirl or most aggro.
Yeah, all decks are Conwhale right now. All decks are pretty much just good stuff, mid-range, rainbow decks. So,
you've only missed one element so far, Max.
So yeah, either way, there aren't that many decks that go absolutely insane. There are definitely ways to beat Yoimiya decks, but when she is good, she's great. She's the best. She's in the best deck when she's good.
I think meta defining is just a really safe call, honestly.
Exactly. And
So,
such a funny comparison to the next character.
Yeah, this character is like, I think here, like, I don't really know where to put Lawyer Master because I've never seen Lawmaster actually do things, and I think the only time I've played Lawmaster was where they buffed the not the Fatu either, where they buffed the Eremites, and then like she did stuff, kind of.
Fair. I mean, every character is doing stuff kind of if you try, but I don't. I just don't think there's any reason to play her once again. Uh,
So apparently she
like
gives anyone you want a nuke button. Huh.
yes, kind of. I
So shall we just put her in niche and just call it a day at niche, because I don't even know like where to start breaking her down, because like I don't know.
um. I mean, to be niche in my mind, there needs to be a specific use that is actually good. Like Chauffeurs can be broken the second there's actual support. But Eremite Loremaster is just you get a little bit of energy and then you have a burst that does what? Nothing?
Stuff. It gives you a technique.
Yeah, it gives you a technique that just deals a below average skill to pyro damage.
Crab
It is
Lawmaster
supposed to,
apparently is a
but
deck that Max runs, but that doesn't, like, you would just run some, like, you just run Sino Crab and Daya. Easy.
doesn't crab skill already deal 2 damage?
Yeah, it does.
You don't need a technique.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think she's niche because
I have
Crab is like the only ideal teammate for her talent, since it tanks, you don't need to worry about the energy drain.
Funnily enough, I have seen one interesting deck with her, which is exactly a nuke button. It's a stall deck with Lila, Novelette, and her, where you give
Okay.
the talent, where you set up Lila Star. You give the talent to Novelette, and then he can suddenly do vaporizes, melts, whatever. It is cool, but I have seen it. I haven't seen it win very much.
So it's
It
gimmicky
is
basically.
yeah. She could have a use because obviously because yes, I do agree a technique is a powerful tool, especially an elemental one. But I just
So
don't see it
where
right now.
would you put her? I'll test you on this because I've played barely any Lawmaster. So this one is almost all on you.
I mean, as have I. I don't. I just don't play her much. I'm going off of what I've seen from my opponents and from weekly results, which I do believe there have actually been some weekly 5-0s with her, but I it's rare.
So where
I
would
would
you put her?
say I honestly niche might be a good call because I don't think she's below average. I
Okay,
don't think she's
that's fair.
I think she's better than below average, worse than average, and I think she has a use somehow. So I do think niche is fair. Bottom of niche is her spot.
Okay, cool. So we'll stick her in niche then. I'll trust your opinion completely on that. Now let's
Yeah.
talk about a boogeyman,
Um,
because this card was extremely nuts when AOC was around, but it almost never gets played now.
yeah, because well, let's go over the history. He was first used as one of the 3 rotating pyro characters in double pyro aggro. It was
Sure,
between him, Klee, Bennett. So
sure.
he had a spot as kind of like a good card that stabilized your game, kind of like Bennett in aggro decks. Uh, he was consistently there up until the game favored more good cards. Uh, more just yeah, just more mid-range piles of good cards, where he also ended up in AEC. For those of you that don't know, that is Official, Oceanid, and Agent, where you use this talent to just get way too much value.
Mm,
Uh,
mm, mm.
the reason that fell off is not actually because of the nerfs, it's because Hyper Magic got introduced, and instead of going for good card piles, there was actually a streamlined strategy that people went for. And I think that honestly, even if they didn't nerf him, the deck would have, if they nerfed Oceanid but not him, the deck would have fallen off. I don't think the 1 HP nerf did anything. I think historically he's been very powerful up until the release of Hyper Magic, and most notably his biggest replacement, Lenny, as it's another Pyro Fatui
Yeah,
character
100%.
that has defensive options and has burst options. So I don't think he has a spot anymore. That is but I do think he has historically had a spot. He has historically been one of the go-to good Pyro mid-range options. I
So,
think I think you could argue good historically, but as for right now, I do think he's just average.
so interesting enough, you mentioned like Hyper Magic killed him off. AEC actually survived Magic, right? It wasn't only till it was only on the release of Jet that the deck actually fell off. Like, yes, it did wane in popularity, but Magic was a much needed like boon for the deck because it just lets the the Pyro agent just deal way more damage in unexpected situations.
Yeah, I did see it a couple of times. I do agree.
It was
Uh,
basically like the deck was already running Magic. So when Gilded Dreams was released, it kind of just like assimilated that whole package because it was doing what it wanted to do already off of that.
yeah,
So
and
it was
funnily
literally
enough,
only Jet that
uh,
killed it.
it was already running somewhat. Sometimes it was running a Liar Song already as is with a 3-cost artifact, the healing one. I forgot its
Yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah, just to get that extra little bit of healing on.
Yeah,
Ocean Hued Clam.
yeah, and it already ran a bunch of healing. So, uh,
So
I mean, the big point of the deck at one point was Ocean Hued Clam increasing damage, healing, and then running a bunch of extra healing
yeah,
with
yeah.
Agent, to the point where his skills dealt like 4 or 5 damage with the clan buffs. His burst dealt 6, 7. He had damage reduction. He had healing. He is a very stable card. But with the more specific decks get, the worse he gets, and I don't think we'll ever get to a spot where he will be where he will ever shine anymore. But I do think he is a good card at his core.
So I'll agree with that. I think like at his peak, he was sitting over here at like consistency good, maybe like somewhere here or here.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
as decks have kind of just like gotten better, like you said, he's kind of just like dropped down. And by today's standards of how good decks are, he is just average. He's not
Yes.
bad because he still does do a lot of things, and you can still be caught out if you're not like paying attention to him. Someone maybe wants to run like a rogue deck with magic instead of Liney or whatever, or they run Liney's talent, him, and then something like Mona, you're just going to be getting unexpected like KOs.
I mean, yeah,
So he's just
he's
a
notoriously
good character,
been
but
an aggro card, so you could theoretically run a version of Fatuizan with him if you really wanted to. It's not good, but
yeah,
he,
yeah, yeah.
he he can be used anywhere where Lenny can, basically, outside of maybe Finale.
Yeah.
But even then, you can argue.
It's like DX says is he's like the baseline for Pyro now, which actually makes
Yeah,
a lot of
yes.
sense.
He's always been the baseline for Pyro in my mind. When I go for when I look for a Pyro character, but I'm not sure which one, I put him in and then I consider the other options. So I do think he's never going to be below average. I do think I
He's
don't
just
think we're
average
ever
at the
going to
moment.
consider to put him in a final version of a deck, but I do think he is definitely powerful enough to go in decks if you really wanted to.
Yeah, he's got a very good skill ceiling as well, that he's not too difficult to learn and how to play around his spell stacks, but he's sort of good enough that you just have to put in the effort to actually learn.
Also, I love Windbound mentioning that he does really nothing outside of raw damage and tanking, and other characters like Seahorse uh, can draw and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
yeah,
fair.
that's basically what his role was. Is in AEC, it was just raw damage and tank.
Yeah.
Uh, I I don't as you said, there are better options if you're looking for just overall characters, but yeah, he's still good. If you need damage and tank, if you just need stats, he's there.
I
That's
could
all he
see
really
him,
needs to do.
unironically, I could see him if deck lists are tight enough when the next Prince Cup rolls around. I think I could see him in a Conquest format where you run out of, like, you can't play Liney, you can't play Bennett, you sort of run out of good anchor Pyro options if a deck for that exists, and then he becomes good again just because there are no other cards anymore that you're allowed to play in a deck and you kind of have to play him.
Yes, absolutely. If within a conquest format, depending on the number of lists, I could see him. I don't think in a in like a best of 5, I would see him, but a best of 7, I do think he's gonna pop up. Even AEC might pop up as a whole.
I think
But
AC has good tech now where you can run like Yai instead of official, maybe potentially with the Yai buff, and then you run Farina, something like Yai Farina Electro Agent. Those are characters, like the only character I could see that's actually being hunted by a deck is Yai.
I mean, yeah, Yai with Flames of War to give him the extra buff, making him even more of a stat stick, could definitely be cool.
That could actually be scary. So you run official Farina and him.
Or Yai for him, or Yai.
Either
Whoever,
way, like that with Flames of War could be really good. So I'll let Calamon take this one over because Calamon's had experience with Conquest formats more than I have. So Max is asking, what's the Conquest format for dummies?
The Conquest format is a format where you can only use a deck once it has won. You can only win with a deck once. You bring multiple decks. Some Conquest formats give you the option to ban. Some don't, depending on. You can run it all sorts of ways, but the point is, you can't have repeats of a character. And once a deck has won, it is locked out. In this case, the Prince Cup format used the best of 3, where you had 3 decks of 3 different characters each, total of 9, and you banned one at the start. And once you have won, that one also got locked out, so you are left with just 1 deck remaining. And then in the top 8, it was actually, I believe they brought 7 decks.
Yeah, I think top 8, it was either top 8 or top 4 that ran.
Top 8. Top
Sure,
8 ran
sure.
7 decks.
Because I know, like, you were
So-
watching the finals, like with Kevin and Ting or whatever, and then it's just like, you see 14 decks brought, and you have to get
Yes.
really creative when you have to bring 7 decks.
Absolutely, yeah. Basically, the point of Conquest format is that there should be no repeats. So if there's a really powerful character, like let's say Yoimiya takes over the metagame as she is in meta defining for us, if she is, or actually a very good example was the metagame in which I played Prince Cup, which is Hyper Magic. You would run Yelan in every single deck if you had the option to, and the point of Conquest format is to stop that from happening. So
Yeah, people got
if
really creative with that. Like, it was what, Yellen,
So-
Singcho, and Mona, I think, were like the 3 core Hydra characters.
And yeah, that's exactly the point. If there's a Lini deck that's really good and you want to run a variation of it, Pyro Agent is a consideration, and we might see that happen at some point.
When we get another one, if we get another one.
I don't think we will, but maybe.
Maybe we'll have to see how things go. But, like, no, I think let's move on to Dia. I think we'll put
Yeah.
Dia in good. She's never like it's either good or consistently good, because she's never really bad, and the only thing that actually lacks with her is her own personal damage output.
Yeah, she's the official situation where you just skill once and then you hope to base you skill once, you hope to never skill again, but if you have to, you refresh it on the fourth turn or the third turn. I don't
Yeah. Some of that
uh
all depends on how you want your applications as well, because the
yeah.
second time you use the skill, then she does deal 1 front-loaded fire damage.
Yeah, but what I mean is you aim to not have to swap into her again, and if you do, uh you want it to be once the skill has actually run out, so you can get a
Yeah,
fresh
that makes
application.
sense. I mean,
I
her
don't think you get to her burst ever. I think she's just there for survivability in a summon.
I was gonna say though, like her burst is nothing to sneeze at though. Like if they get it off, you have to play around it a little bit because 3 damage in 2 instances is really it's 6 damage. So in an endgame situation, that 6 damage really can just win where it needs to.
Yes, I agree with that, especially in the decks where she's ran, where you usually have a weapon.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
However, the biggest issue is that the comparison with Fischl is very real, as in Fischl's burst is also very powerful, but you don't see it often because you don't want to use Fischl actively all that much.
that's
It's
true.
the same with Dea, where the whole reason she's so good is because once you get her to that 6 HP, or even if she's above that, she tanks for your other character that's actually important. She's just sitting there to soak up damage.
Yeah, like in the
She's
case of Bin or Din or pretty much any of those decks.
Yes, exactly. Din is, I think, the only deck I've seen her in that's actually been meta relevant. Maybe I'm forgetting one or two, but Din is the big one. For those not aware, that is Dea, Ito, and Noel, where you just ran 3 Claymore characters to make use of your Claymores, and you aim to tank until you had set up a big Ito turn. Dea is really good for that. If you're going to be setting up, if you need a Claymore character that sets up for your other characters, she essentially not only provides Pyro to which you can crystallize with Ito summon, for example, uh, but she also provides enough damage reduction to the point where you kind of have 1.5 health bars on another character. Not
Yeah.
really, but she provides enough survivability in a way where you don't have to invest into it. Other characters can provide more, but she provides it the easiest in the game, I would argue.
Yeah, no, I'll stick with that. I think I can't find any reason, just also because of how historically good she was, and still is to a degree. If you want like a stallier deck, you can just 100% run her. There's no downside to actually just doing that. Especially like again in a conquest format, where if you want to bring 2 sort of like mid-range or stall decks, then you can run her in a secondary stall deck.
Yeah, and I do think I saw her in some of the hyper magic lists instead of. I don't know if it was Linny or Horse. I don't. I think I saw her in one list. I don't remember if it was in Prince Cup or if it was. It was. I don't remember the format, but I do remember that people were experimenting
Mm-mm-mm.
with Dea in other decks, and there is one deck that I definitely did forget that came out at around that time, which is Double Animal with Jean and Lynette.
Oh no,
Uh,
that was such a night. How did we forget about that? Because that deck is just such a nightmare to deal with because you get throttled around by Jean swapping you while no one is taking any damage. And because they're both
yes,
summons, you take end of damage swill.
yeah. The second Lynette came out, uh, uh, people hadn't discovered the true potential of Magic in a way, or wanted to try, or if you wanted to play a deck that wasn't Yalan Magic, you could have gone for Dea, Jean, Lynette, which is just your traditional double animal style deck that aim to disrupt you with
Mm-mm.
swaps. And Dea was a very important piece of that, as the damage reduction comes in very handy when Lynette has healing at the end of turn. With a kill of Avonia, it can have even more healing, damage reduction with her burst. It's kind of a you kind of turn Lynette or even Jean into a Pyro agent situation where you get extra damage reduction. You stack them up with healing. She was very useful in that deck. She did get replaced for, I think, Chi-Chi or some other sword character, so you could run 3
Yeah,
swords.
yeah, yeah. I think Chi-Chi was
Swords,
the call. So
but
on an interesting
it
point quickly, right, is that you mentioned Pyro Agent. I didn't actually think about it this way, but Dia gives your active character a refreshing stealth stack.
kind of, yeah. She had 1 damage reduction is exactly. Well, Agent starts with 2. Dea can basically give you 3.
Yeah, you don't
So
get the damage increase, but you don't need it in these decks anyway,
yeah,
so you're fine.
she's entirely there for survivability, and that's all she needs to do. And in a way, the extra damage comes with the summon itself. So
So
she's great.
let's go like, I think let's go D-Luke next. I would put D-Luke in average, honestly. Because
I highly disagree.
it's like,
I
here's my thing. Is like, D-Luke is one of those characters that as soon as there is a good situation for him to show up, he does really, really well. Like with Golden Troops Reward now being, I think, the 2-cost version and the 0-cost version, getting to 3 skills in a single turn isn't as unreasonable as it was in the earlier patches. And he's got insane damage like ceilings. Like he really just does.
um yes, I can agree with that, but the issue is we have already went over a character that does a similar thing in Arlecchino, and we have already concluded that she doesn't really have a spot just because she deals a lot of damage. You know, there are characters that do more fitting things, and all he does is just damage, with a caveat to it. It needs setup. His burst costs 4 with 3 energy.
Yeah.
Yes, it deals 8 damage, but oftentimes by the time you get to it, you would already have a character on low HP that you're willing to sacrifice, and you put your opponent's D-Look in a kind of a bad position. And if you want to use a skill properly, you're gonna need a lot of dice. And if you get that much dice, you would rather set up a better combo, like with Yalan, with Yoimiya, with Zhangling is on this list. She would much rather that. Bennett using that much energy to set up Bennett or use his buff well, it would be a better idea. I don't think just getting 2 extra damage the 3rd time does anything, because that's making you spend 9 dice for 11 damage.
Sure.
Which yes,
So like,
which
one of the
yes, it does deal a
decks,
lot of damage, but it's hard to set up.
that's fair. One of the decks that I've seen him do in like really, really well in, and that is actually really scary, is when you pair him with Chongyun. Him and Chongyun do, because they are both Claymore characters. You just kind of like
Yeah,
set up on Chongyun, and then you like, so basically you start on Chongyun, you use Chongyun's skill, and then you ramp up with like a Liben Wagner, and now when you go, or instead of Wagner, you can use Golden Troop, because then his next skill costs 1. You go onto him, or you sort of like harass them with Chongyun or Diluc, and then consequently just come in with the other one and kind of clean up the rest.
see, here's the funny thing. Chonghyun has a 7 damage burst, uh, just like Diluc's 8. And if you're gonna be setting up on Chongyun, you're much closer to his burst anyway, and so he would rather just use him to finish them off. And when you're setting up that has happened in Chongyun combo decks where you use him to set up, and if your combo characters are unsafe, you just stay on him and kill with him anyway. And
That's
if you do
that's
set up
that's
the
fair.
combo, usually it's a lot deadlier than just D-Look. Either
So
it freezes you or it deals AoE damage with Superconduct. I don't think D-Look has a spot anywhere, and I don't think he ever will.
So like, it's DX says that counter argument for Chong Diluc is there's Bennett, and that's actually fair. I didn't consider that one.
So
I guess I've just maybe got a soft spot for Diluc. Like,
I mean, I do as well. I do love, like, doing Wolf's Gravestone, Diluc, triple skill, burst dealing, whatever, incredible, insane amounts of damage. It's funny, and I do think a fully equipped Diluc with artifacts, with weapons, with talent is definitely cool, but I don't think it will ever be viable.
So we're gonna throw him with Unfei and put him below average.
He's, yes.
Because he's
I
certainly
would.
better than these two.
Yeah, not by much, but yes.
He's like he
He
probably
is
just
better.
he probably just edges it out. I don't know. I've
Yes.
died to Diluc decks so often. Like I guess if you don't play around it, then he's a really scary, like he's a skill check almost.
Uh, yeah, but like, how do you not play around him? You know what I mean? Like, uh,
How do you avoid
Stall
taking
deck,
like 9 pyro damage to the face? Yeah.
yeah, usually like stall decks have a way to freeze him or to tank through him. Aggro decks just kind of like kill him before he does anything.
Play him
Combo decks set up more damage than he can.
play him
It's
with
he really
Cultist
has
Art. Easy.
yeah, play right in with him, but like then you have to. I know you're joking, but you have to realize that even when you're going for a Calcizard's deck, the best one uses Yang Ling.
That's
Uh,
just true, honestly.
or as an if you're considering him as an anchor, then you'd use his Nahida instead. I just don't think +2 damage on the last hit is a good design. I think if it was +1 for each after the first, that would be kind of cool.
That
I
actually
think that
would, yeah. Have a character that's like centered around scaling skill damage. Yeah, that would make sense.
uh I mean maybe not scaling, but just going 3-4-4 is much better than 3-3-5 because usually the third one is the hardest one to get.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
use it with 8 dice, you would have to go above that to get the third
Or
one.
or you play
And
Golden
even
Troop.
then, yeah, but even then you would rather have to spend all that dice on something else. So I
Yeah,
don't
that
think
that that
he's
is that is fair.
I don't I think by design he struggles. Uh
That
and
is actually quite
honestly,
fair. But like I said, I think I was lost from him because when he came out in 1.0, I think he was probably the best character in 1.0 aside from Yoimiya.
I disagree. I
I mean,
think even then he didn't have as
Overload,
much.
especially like when GITCG first came out, was such a
Yeah,
skill
that
check
was
for people.
I mean that was
Official D-Luke Bennett is just like 8 people.
even then the better there was a better version of that deck with Kutzing, Bennett, and well, you could go a second Electro, you could go a second Pyro. Usually there was a second Pyro and
Was
three.
Kaching double pyro really that early?
Yeah, all of them came out in the first version.
Wow. I guess I was a bit out of the loop for about the first 5 months of GTCG. I played like every single day heinously for a bunch of hours, and then like I guess I took a break right near the beginning, so I probably missed a whole lot of that. So
Uh, I'm seeing Maxwell argue for Deluxe Pros being access to Melzine plus Gravestone. In other words, Claymores. He doesn't utilize them very well. There are much better Claymores to go for. Good talent install. One energy port, one dice port turn is not good considering you can get that with just 2 cost support cards. And the nuke, yes, that's good, but oftentimes by the time you get it, they just sack a character. It's good to have a finishing move to kill off a character, yes, but they don't, you can play around it and damage and reactions. He doesn't apply that much pyro, so yes, he can do a lot of damage with them, but having to set up having to set up elements to another character and then swap to him and then try to get off 3 skills. Absolutely not a move you want to do. So I don't think, even with the things he should be doing on paper, he does not do ever. I think he only appears because people in decks because people like him, because he has been around since forever. He does on paper do a cool thing the big in the big burst, the big third skill, but uh I don't think he does anything outside of people for trying to force him. And also, can I give you my thoughts on Layla and Dea with him? Uh, he's Layla and Dea are good characters that make him better than he usually would be, but I don't think he's the best anchor for that deck. I think you can have success with any deck, to be fair, if you build it fair enough, if you build it well enough, but I don't think he will ever be the best spot in that deck.
Yeah, so I'll concede on this one. I'm still gonna put him below average though, because I have an extremely soft spot. I can't put him on literally unplayable because he is still a playable card.
Yeah, I will give that to you just because I don't care enough to argue for literally unplayable. He's not a card that I should be arguing that this long for anyway.
It's fine. Now Hutago's niche. I don't care what anyone says. Huta's niche.
Yes, she has one deck.
When she's good, she's good, but she suffers so many problems, and it saddens me as someone like who Huta's my favorite character in the game. It just saddens me that you have to use 2 dice on your skill to get the infusions when Yoimiya sits right here. It's like Leeway Armory / Leeway Friends is about her only deck, but she's really, really good in that deck.
I mean, yeah, that is it. She's just a Liwa polar. That is what she does.
With the upcoming buff, I haven't seen any buffs. Have the details been released yet? Please tell me the details have been released yet.
I believe they're talking about leaks.
Probably. I only pretty much avoid talking about leaks on stream. If you're in the Discord server, you can talk about leaks as much as you want. I do not actually care. Seeing content creator servers. Okay, that actually makes a lot more sense, honestly.
I don't know what the buff is. We could discuss it at a later point, but
yeah, I think that's the fair estimation is just discuss it at a later point and then maybe bump her up.
Even if we know what the buff is, we need to play with it to see what it actually does.
Yeah,
as it stands right now, she has one deck where she is good, but not game breaking in. I do think she is above. I do think because she has had a deck that was not very successful, but fairly successful, she does go below Zhengling.
Below?
Below. Because the deck was still like, when it popped up, it was kind of like a trend almost.
The only reason I'll put her up is because Hyper Magic did wonders for this deck.
That is fair.
Like, in Jet era, she was a legitimate threat. But then you weren't even using her skill. You were just using her with Moon Piercer, Lithic Spear. You were going like Chong Yun, and she was the endgame carry.
Yeah. I do think she is powerful with weapons because obviously normal attack infusions benefit greatly from it.
Yeah,
Characters that have healing and normal attacks do benefit from it, especially from a defensive weapon like Lithic Spear giving you shields. I think she is really good in the deck that she is in, just like Zhangling. You could argue one over the other. I'm not gonna stop you from putting whichever one you want.
Fair. I won't put her over Olakino though, because the sad thing is Olakino kind of does what she does without the setup. So this feels comfortable to me. Also, to answer Bonnie's question, how long does it actually take to learn TCG? My answer to that is if you have any prior TCG experience, and I mean with like literally any TCG ever, probably like half an hour, if that. If you have 0 TCG experience, probably like an hour. It's not difficult to learn.
Yeah. to learn the rules, I think just play. I think there's a reason the PvP is locked up until what was it? Rank
Level
4.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, level 4. Uh, just playing with NPCs, you're gonna get a hang of how the mechanics work, and then actually learning the game comes with uh joining, and it comes from watching maybe not tier lists like this, but more so videos of higher level play or higher level decks, or joining into tournaments yourself. Uh, which given there's basically one for that's a good place to learn if you just want to test your decks, see how everybody else plays, how they play it. Maybe you could find some better players there to uh, ask questions.
I personally
But
think joining like my Discord or the official Discord or one of those.
this, apparently the stream is lagging a bit.
Uh, is it?
Is everything good now, everybody? Can Wonderful. Okay, so they lost us during the weekly speech. Uh, Basically, Bonnie, if you want to get into the game, it does not take long to actually learn the mechanics of the game. And if you want to get good at it, it will take some time, but just it will come with just playing the game.
Yeah. And like I said, joining a Discord server is a really good way to learn and get help from people, because there are people willing to help. I don't think I know anyone in the community that plays GITCG that's actually stingy to like help people learn or tell people sort of like better ways to do things.
Yeah. Even if there are enough that will help you. The ones that won't just don't talk. So it doesn't
Yeah,
really matter.
yeah, pretty much. So I think let's move on to Toma. Where
Yeah.
would you put Toma? I would think like Toma is average, where he's not phenomenally good, but there's nothing inherently bad about him either. Like
Name me one deck outside of Crab,
Sino Overload.
which is Crab.
Not always.
Isn't it just
Before
well,
Crab, there was versions. He works with Nahida as well. He's got funny decks, which is why I say he's average. Because like he never does anything bad, but he's not like a phenomenal character. I would still put him below Agent, but he does see play. That's the thing.
I don't think he's gonna be an average, honestly. If you're gonna argue that he has variety, then he's going good, because in the deck that he does work, there is no better character.
So you want me
And
to bump him up to good?
yeah, it's either good if you want to argue for consistency, or niche if you want to argue that he's just meant for Crab and Crab only.
Yeah, I can see that. I think like he
Uh,
does a lot of good things. He sustains on the time you want to set up on him, and he gives the other characters time to kind of like get their thing going. He generates shields, which is obviously beneficial for Crab. His burst having 2 usages, not round usage, on like a normal attack, means that you can sort of pace things better as well, which there is that. So
yeah, he's kind of just their answer to the early version of Yoimiya that they're so scared of. Less usages, but
that is
a lower
actually
cost.
true. Yeah.
He, I don't think. I think that the combo decks that want to use a Pyro follow-up attack will just use Yoimiya, because if they want an effect this badly, they are gonna put in the extra cards to get that extra energy, that extra dice necessary. Uh, I think that what pushes him over the edge is just the fact that he gives one shields so much. So
I think
I
like
think I think Crab is. I think there will almost never be a better character than him for Crab. In
probably
fact, I
not
don't think there ever will
honestly.
be.
So like
But
another thing that I just thought of is going back to again like a conquest format, right? It could be a usage case scenario where you end up with a situation like this, where you ended up with Yellen and Xingqiu, where you want to run these both in a deck, and they fill sort of enough of the same slot, but still enough that they're different characters entirely.
I disagree. I think that if you're gonna be using him, I think that he's gonna be the character who gets replaced. I think he's gonna be in Crab every single time. I think
That
he
is
has his
fair.
slot
Yeah.
filled out. I think that he is really, really, really good in Crab. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think I think
That
his
makes
other
sense.
decks are more so they're viable, they're playable. You can whoever wants to play them can play them, but they're not gonna
Mm.
ever be meta relevant. I don't think.
So the only reason, Max, that I would put Xingqiu's skill over Toma's skill is because Xingqiu's skill has self-application. And self-application in GITCG is probably one of the most busted, I won't call it like a mechanic, but one of the most busted things you could do.
Yeah, Xingqiu has seen play in stall as well because of that.
Yeah.
He Xingqiu does a lot. Like I I I think that Toma like the extra one shield doesn't do much outside the context of crab because at the end of the day it's 2 damage, one shield, which is if you equate the shield 2 damage, that's basically like the regular 3 damage skills that everybody else gets. I think that what really separates him from the rest is just how often he gets shields and the fact that he gets them on his burst.
Yeah,
I
that honestly makes sense.
I think I think it is worth putting him good or niche because of crab, but I don't think it's worth putting him anywhere else for any other deck. The other decks are just honorable mentions, if anything.
Yeah. Okay, so that's fair. So I think let's solidify him here. I think at the end we'll just go through like each tier, depending on how many characters, and then I kind of just shift these numbers around a little bit. But at
Okay.
current, I think this is kind of like, I wouldn't put him over D, but like I could see this being a thing, like him being the top of good. Or like something like this for A.
Uh, yeah, I would honestly I would argue Arlecchino is at the bottom of good. Uh, just because she hasn't seen any meta relevant decks as of yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's honestly actually true. I
And the other
think,
two have been in the best deck in the format, so you
yeah,
can argue for both.
this looks comfortable. Maybe move it around like that on below average.
Yeah.
But otherwise, this looks kind of like good. So now we have Jinyan. I know you got
Uh,
strong thoughts about this character.
I do. I think she is the scariest character in the entire game moving forward. As of right now, she is good, and that's it. Uh, but I think, or honestly, even consistently good. But I don't think she's shown that yet. But I think moving forward, the fact that she has the discard synergy, notably in every single card game ever, the strongest discard effect has been the one to discard your entire hand. Uh,
Yeah, it works really well with
uh,
what Laboratory Ruins, the one cost one that basically refunds you. She basically makes dice. She's playing Jet with the squad.
yeah, and if we ever get to the point where you can fill your deck entirely with cards that get benefits when you discard them, she will be the best card in the entire game just off of the fact that her burst by itself is
7
supposed
damage
to
minimum.
yeah, it's a 7 damage minimum, two more over the course of two turns, total of 9 damage, 3 pyro applications. It's AoE, uh, and the downside is supposed to be discarding your hand. That's supposed to be a downside, but by the time you get to your burst, you have already discarded a bunch with your skill. You actively want to discard in her decks, and not only will that eventually turn into an upside, but as it stands in her current decks, her burst doesn't discard much. You're left with like one or two cards in your hand, and when you do, they might be beneficial for you to discard. And and her skill on top of that, we've talked enough about her burst potentially being scary in the future. Her skill is 4 value with 2 damage, 2 shield,
Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
and uh we've talked about how good that can be on other characters potentially. And
Yeah, where's
or
Claymore
she's
as well,
wonderful.
which is
Yeah,
really relevant. I think like
yeah.
her scary decks are the Jinya and Apep decks, in my opinion, but she just works in so many other decks.
I have seen her work
I've seen her on every
basically
weekly card for the
standalone.
last like 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Exactly. And if you look at the deck selection there, it's oftentimes just 2 other cards that are either good at cleanup or maybe setup. And for example, Yai with Flames of War,
Yeah.
because once you get it started with Jinyan having an extra tick at the end with her burst, like you just basically set up, you get the cards you actually want to play out of your hand, and then you start discarding with her. You have an empty hand by that point. You have an extra damage with Flames of War. Her talent, if you draw that, is really good. +2 damage per turn, as we've noted with Linny, is really good. And she gets it basically for just playing the game without even a condition. Her condition is she gets to her condition by just playing. She gets a discard with her skill and her burst. She will always be at low amounts of cards in her hand. If she ever draws above that, she immediately uses them because her decks are either designed to have low costs or to be discardable, for the cards to be discardable. She has just such high numbers for a card that will get more and more synergy. Discard is an archetype that inherently that gets exponentially stronger the more synergy there is. And not only does she represent that in the future, but as of right now, running just 1 or 2 discard cards and uh, a weapon plus her talent makes her a really scary card on her own.
Mm-hmm. You have to.
Even without APEP, even without support for her, by just the fact that skill burst is a total of 4 on the first skill, 4 on the second, making it 8, then
13
7 on the
total.
burst, potentially 9. That's
13 total.
15. That's 15, potentially 17 damage if
I think
I'm doing the math
the
correctly.
extra scary thing is that
Well,
you
not
have to
damage, but
deal with
value.
her before you even can deal with the rest of the deck. It's like you have to play against
Exactly.
2 decks at once. You've got to first deal with Jinyan, and then you have to deal with the actual deck behind Jinyan.
Exactly.
So, like, I'm
Or
not even going to argue with this because I agree with literally every single one of your points. The
I
only,
think
I think she's like good with depending how the game present. Like, she only has room from up here. Like, she can only go up.
exactly. Notably, if anybody here has played. Okay, stream is back. Don't worry, guys. I caught it this time. I didn't say anything. You didn't miss out on anything. But notably in Hearthstone, by turn you used cards that discard your entire hand on turn 3 or 4, and you just send and but the second you hit turn 3 or 4, you ended up with a full board, a lot of damage to your opponent's face, a lot of card draw, and that's what happens with discard archetypes, where usually discard effects are supposed to have downsides, but when you print a card, it's like when you discard it, do X. It essentially ends up being a free effect because the discard is supposed to be a downside, but then you turn it into a positive, and so you end up with a card with 2 big upsides, notably her dealing 7 to 9 damage plus an extra effect. This effect will only get stronger. And I Kobe in chat mentioned that she will eventually get nerfed, but the thing is, the only thing you can nerf is the speed at which she does it, because the more synergy you print, the more the inherent text discard your hand does. At some point, if they print enough discard support, which I don't think we'll ever get to the point with the slow release of cards.
Yeah. To me, another thing is like it's difficult to nerf Jinyan because to nerf Jinyan you have to nerf an entire mechanic, and it's seriously up to like what cards they actually make to determine how strong she will be. If they control and carefully look at all the cards that have the word discard on them, in the context that Jinyan were able to use them, then they can control her power level going forward that way. But if they kind of just like ignore her and just print absurd cards, then yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but even if it gets to the point where like all the discard cards say is when you discard this, draw one card or get one dice. Minor effects. Like
I mean,
heal one.
the best deck
get
I
one
can think
shield.
like
Even then you get to burst and just get a bunch of dice, a bunch of draw, a bunch of whatever. We're basically doing nothing. So even if they nerf the damage on her burst, as long as they don't completely remove it, she will always be scary with this card.
The best thing I can think of like with Jinyan is I don't know if you ever played Festive Blood in Shadowcraft, like in Shadowverse. It's the best unlimited Bloodcraft deck at the moment, just because it has the has the words discard on. Like everything in the deck just discards cards to draw cards, and then deal more damage because you're drawing more cards. And it's crazy to me that they basically took a card like from Magic the Gathering, they took one with nothing and made it broken. To me, that's crazy.
Yeah. That happens, funnily enough, has happened in basically every single card game except Magic, I think.
In Magic, one with nothing is just trash because it's just like 1 mana discard your hand does not really what you want it to do.
But every single other card game I can think of loves discard your hand effects because of the upside. But even without that, if we look at current decks, they run just like they run 2 discard cards basically, one for energy, maybe one for something else. Like it's not much, but even with that, she gets so much value out of it. By let's say it's just the laboratory, which gives extra dice. She gets she uses 2 skills in a burst, and that's probably gonna be, say, 6 cards by that point discarded. That's gonna proc laboratory twice. So for spending 9 dice, you get 2 back,
which you can use on ramp for the next turn or basically anything you want.
Yes, absolutely off of the current cards that we have, off of just 1 card, she gets to be so cost effective because of her skills inherently having higher values, and then getting synergy on top of that is just really powerful, and she will only get scarier by the fact because she has the defenses with the shield, she has the damage, she has AoE. The more claymores they release, the scarier she will become. The more discard they release, the scarier she will become. And I think that we will hit a point where she is a deck on her own, and in a way she kind of is already. So I think right now you should put her in good, maybe consistently good, but I think she is the card to look out for in the future.
100%, yeah. Like there is just no downside to playing her. She, like I said, to nerf her you'd have to nerf an entire mechanic, and they're way past that point already. Even if she's not caring about, like, you've got to nerf twofold to kind of like stop her. We've got to nerf her damage, and you've got to be careful with what cards you release, because the second you release a card that just cares about actually being discarded consistency, like look at how good Countdown to the Show is. If you release more cards like Countdown to the Show that have on discard effects, then even if she's maybe not doing a whole bunch of damage, she can be used as a fuel setup. That she just uses, like, you use her in early game to set up all your discard effects, and then once you actually get to your proper characters, then you're playing stuff like 0 cost, draw 3, make all your dice omni.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the Apex decks, she can summon on top of that. She makes dice, she draws, she summons, just because she discards so much and gets so much value off of it.
So to explain fatigue tent here, a lot of times aggro decks, like I play Burn in Magic the Gathering, a lot of time aggro decks, they want to kill you as quickly as possible, but they need cards to do that. They need characters to do that. If you run out of cards in hand or whatever, then you really, really struggle to get to that point. You
No, I
need
think what
resources.
Maxwell is referring to is the fatigue in Hearthstone, which is when you deck out, you start taking damage one by one. There's no deck
Oh,
out.
okay, fair enough, fair enough. But I mean, fatigue
So
is still like the way I explained it still makes sense for fatigue in
yeah,
my opinion. That like you still
it
need the
makes
cards in
sense
hand, and you don't get
with
punished for
Jinyan, yeah.
doing that with Jinyan.
She gets to run countdown and just draw as much as possible.
Yeah, like she's just
And then
loving
just
life out here.
immediately dump out her hand. He doesn't need a hand.
She's just
She
living
has so
life.
much value on her own that she's happy with just a woven dice here, some dice generation there, some talent, some
As long as
weapons,
she's
and
dealing
that's
damage,
all
she's
she needs.
happy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then let's go Klee. I would say Klee's average to good.
Yeah.
Like
Average. I
she
think
does
she.
stuff and she's really scary on first turn KOs, but besides that, like I've seen her being used in Chiori decks, but I personally think that Mona is even better. Is just still better in the Chiori decks than what she is because you value the fast swap more than anything else. She's a good consistent damage dealer, but there's a lot of characters that are just good consistent damage dealers.
Yeah. The thing is, maybe she has a spot in good because not only was she the best in a lot of aggro decks in the beginning, but the second they introduced arcane cards, they arcane legends, uh the one that was actually useful, Covenant of Rock, she was the best user of, and so she actually took great advantage of that, uh even after she had started falling out. And so for a while, she still had a spot in aggro decks. Now, I haven't seen her in basically anything since Magic came out, but I think it is not. I think there is a point to putting her in good, just because of how prevalent she was in aggro decks, just because of the fact that she had an first turn knockout on
But it's like
one of the opponent's characters.
DX
Just
says that it's the same baseline now we're talking about as Agent. Agent was historically good and we have him in average. So Klee kind of fills that same role. I'd put her above Agent in average, but I think she's just kind of average. She's on that same problem where she's fighting for the slot, and you kind of just want that slot to be someone like actually better, but Klee is still a little bit more build around. And if you're running Klee, I'm gonna be honest, you probably want Liney over her.
Yes. Yeah. Currently, well, the only spot she has historically had is in double pyro aggro.
Yeah.
But if you look at those lists nowadays, it's like Bennett, Thunder Manifestation, and then I guess you would put her in there as a filler slot.
Yeah, that would
play
work.
her. But actually, as I mentioned, Thunder Manifestation, that is a deck she could still theoretically play, so you could argue for good.
That is true.
She still has a deck, because I don't see myself playing Linny over her in pure double pyro aggro. Funnily enough, so I do think you can put her in good, actually, because Fire Agent will probably never see play in a meta relevant deck again, but she might come back in double pyro. So I think good.
I suppose that's fair, but if you're using Covenant, you're doing more degenerate things than just a clean normal attack.
Actually, wait, no, I just realized Arlecchino exists now.
Yeah, and Arlecchino exists. So
yeah, you replace Lee with Arlecchino and double pyro probably.
So you're sitting there with a case of, yes, Klee is historically good, right? Just like Pyro Agent, where she's got decks where she's really good in, and if they make another deck that she could be really good in, she could be really good in. Same thing with Conquest formats, just like Pyro Agent, she could be seen as a choice where you've run out of other choices. But at baseline, she's just kinda average. If you're not running her in Mona or Chiori, then, well, you're not really doing much. And in those decks, there are just better options for Pyro applications than what she has.
Yeah.
I personally think
Uh,
she's top of average. Like, she doesn't do anything bad, but she's not like actually good. I've never seen Klee
yeah.
and been scared of a Klee, honestly. Like,
I have been way back when in the first versions. Back when Covenant came out, I do think she was scary. But mm, I I do think she probably hangs around average, but
but that's why I would say
I
like
see
top
chat.
of average.
I see
Chat is
chat
rioting
pleading
over
for
here.
good. I see chat really wants her in good.
Yeah, chat is rioting over here that I'm putting Nahida low, like in average. But I legitimately think that her and Agent are just kind of like a really good baseline for what Pyro characters should be doing. Where Pyro character Pyro Agent represents sustain and slightly a longer game, where Klee represents the aggro aspect of like Pyro, where she does a lot of good things and her damage is really good, but she doesn't have any really like long game sustain to her. Like, yes, her burst is kind of scary. It's kind of like a more narrowed down version of Fatui Resonance, but her burst does cost 4. Is it 3 or 4
Yeah.
cost?
I believe it's still 4. Let me check.
If it's 3, it makes it a little bit better, but I don't know. Klee is a little bit fragile as well, I guess. That's the problem. Is she is an aggro character. It is 3.
Remember,
Okay.
it's not 4
Okay.
and 2, it's 3 and 3. It's 3 energy is the important part.
Yeah. And she's
she gets there
kind of
quickly.
fragile to get there, and you have to spend a lot of time on her, which gives your opponent like a lot of time to set up on their own things. Like, yes, you're dealing the damage, but I don't think like your opponent really cares if you're giving them 3 turns before you hit the burst. And the first turn kill is really easy to play around. Like, I've never been caught by a Monically turn 1 KO, ever.
Yeah. I mean,
So to answer Bucky, yes, there is a Discord server. There's my Discord server, and then there's the GITCG server. Hang on, I can give you the link right now because I've got Twitch chat open here, and I can just do like exclamation mark Discord. So I'll copy that over. There we go. That should work for my server. So I think I just feel comfortable putting it at the top of average. Honestly.
same.
With Crab though, we have to put here. I don't think this is even a discussion. Like,
oh yeah, with Crab around, I don't think she has enough damage anymore.
no.
I just don't.
I think this is just. I think
Yeah.
We probably don't even need to spend time talking about Crab because Crab is just ubiquitously like meta defining. This thing eats nerfs for breakfast and then still kind of does what it just wants to do. Like, the only way, like when I was playing the viewer deck lists and playing Crab, or just generally whenever I play Crab, the only thing I'm actually terrified of is Pierce. Because the rest of the time, Crab just eats whatever you throw at it and just goes like, well, can you give me some more, please?
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of that Crab piercing is not consistent enough too, because you don't usually only have it on bursts.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I've caught Crab with semi-consistently, semi-reliably is against worse players. You can get them to sacrifice their other 2 characters because they think to themselves that they only have Crab, and then you start freezing Crab every single turn.
But even then, it's difficult. You gotta get lucky because if they get Crab talent, then they can kind of avoid the first freeze.
Yeah, talent usually isn't scary if you only get them down to Crab, but the issue is you do need to somehow have a freeze deck that puts your opponent in a situation where they're only on Crab.
It's a serious skill check, and I think it was Kevin that said it, that like you have to be good to play Crab properly. Like, you can easily mess up on Crab and then you throw in your whole game plan. So like, I think the good Crab players are like really good Crab players. But even then, the fact that he does so much, no matter, like, you can play the deck badly and still win because Crab just kind of clutches your deck just by existing.
I have definitely even against the deck that's supposed to counter it, which is decks using Wolf's Gravestone. Uh,
Mm-mm.
there's not only one, there's multiple variations of it at this point. But I have even lost with those, even though they have freeze. They are a combo deck which usually beats stall decks. They have Wolf's Gravestone, which is really good against Crab's low HP because it's always active. Uh, they can still lose if the Crab player runs Joyous, actually, to
Yeah.
cleanse the freeze.
Another scary thing is that now you say that Wolf's Gravestone you can pressure and like kill with, but you end up in a situation where now they're playing like Crab, Sino, Toma. They can just stay on Toma and Sino and just pressure your Gravestone user before they actually get anywhere. And to me, that
Exactly.
like Sino is so pushed at the moment that he will just delete people, and then you lose your Wolf's Gravestone user, and now you're sitting there like, well, how do I deal with Crab now that's got a Sino in the back with like 8 stacks on it?
Yeah, exactly. I think Crab just on his, he is a kind of a Dea situation where uh you can put any two characters around him, in this case, Sino and Thoma. But
Mm-mm.
he kind of succeeds without them, but they complete him enough to where even if you focus down on killing him or even if you focus down on those two characters, you still have to deal with him. If you focus on him, you still have to deal with the other two characters. He's
Mm-mm.
just too much on his own. He's kind of two characters in one, kind of like Jinyan. He just
Yeah,
does
yeah,
too
yeah, I'll agree with
much.
that.
He he's just he just has too much going for him. If it was only shields, then yeah, it's not as bad. But the fact that he has a burst that turns his shields into damage, it gets really scary. If
Mm-mm.
you need to somehow keep up with him,
I think
which is
an interesting way to
really hard.
nerf Crab, right, would be instead of gaining equal amounts of shields, he gains half shields. So like if he's absorbing 2, then he gets 1 shield. And then with his talent, that makes it, they basically change his talent to make what he is now. So if he's got talent, they keep it with the double shields. But it works out that if you have his talent, then you absorb 2 shields for 2 shields. You absorb 1 to 1. But if you don't have talent, then you're absorbing, say, like 2 to 1.
But how does that work on one shield? Does it go to 0 or does it still keep it at 1?
I think you round up. So 1 shield is
Okay.
1 shield.
Okay. Is that could be an answer?
It would slow it down a lot. Because then like Toma, for instance, only gives him 1 shield for every skill, not 2 to 4. It would be 1
Uh,
to 2 instead of 2 to 4.
yeah, it would, but I guess, yeah, that would kind of just have his shields, but even then, we're talking about a character that gets to 32 shields, getting to 16 instead. That's not. That is a big nerf, but it might not even be enough in a way.
True, but it's like the only thing I can think to actually do to Crab. Because if you slow down his shield generation, then you slow down the damage on his skill, because his skill relies on having a certain number of shields to do maximum damage. His burst also would be slowed down because he's not getting as many shields from his supports. He would have to kind of like work for his own shields. Or they give him a weird passive, like with Arlecchino can't get healing, like health from healing. They make it so that Crab can't get shields from artifacts, or he can only get shields from characters.
I mean, alternatively, you could also just make his burst really bad, like 1 damage per 4 shields or something, half as much damage.
But I think the correct way to like actually nerf Crab and attack like Crab as a problem is to go after the shields, not the health, not any of the skills. Like you actually have to go after the shields themselves.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
like the only
either
way I
way,
can see it. So
I feel like any nerf would still not be enough. You would need combinations. Like maybe nerf the change you propose with the shields, and then maybe take off a damage here and there. Like maybe I don't know where exactly, but maybe make his burst cost 4 on top of that instead of 3. I'm not sure,
maybe that could
but
actually, or like 3 energy. Keep it at 3 and 3 energy.
maybe.
If he
But
can't get shields or artifacts, that defeats the whole purpose of his identity. Not really, because then you just make players get more like creative. You'll probably see him stop popping up. Like you'll basically end up in a situation where you won't see him running like double Pyro. You'll probably see him running double Geo, and then you'll have to be forced into a certain situation, like of you have to run double Geo stall now for your crab to actually do anything, instead of your crab being this weird mishmash hybrid character between aggro and mid-range, where he can either kind
yeah,
of like
like
do aggro or mid-range.
double Geo with Noel and the Bell could be an idea that I've tried exploring in the past before I realized every single shield gives him two. So I gave up on
Yeah,
it immediately.
yeah.
But making him work for it is definitely what you need to do, because right now the whole problem is that he does everything too easy.
He does it
He
for
just
free,
has access
basically.
to
You just play shields, and he's just like,
exactly.
well, now we're here.
Exactly.
So like,
He
yeah, I think that you just have to attack the shields. That's the only way I can see it. Is you have to attack the shields.
yeah. I mean, either way, whatever they do, I mean, I hope that they do something at the very least.
I
And
think
whatever they
they
do,
have
it
to.
might
They
not be
just
enough.
have to do something. I can't see them just not doing anything, and then we sit here for a million more patches with crap. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. Anyways, are there any changes you would make to this tier list now that we've actually ranked everyone?
Well, the chat was kind of mad about Toma at good instead of niche after we put clear average. They were
Yeah,
willing to give
I
that
could
up
tell chat was
at
rioting a
Toma.
little bit. So like,
Somebody asked why he wasn't good and not niche. Um, and I will take the opportunity to blame Tacti because I wanted him in niche as well.
you can
I
fully
have
blame me on this. I can
I have
shift stuff
no
around. Like
arguments
I can
against
do this to make it
Toma
look
and
better.
niche. I have zero arguments against Toma and niche. Yeah,
So then
that's
we
a
put him.
good.
I think instead of niche, let's just put him at the bottom like this.
Uh, bottom of good sound. Yeah.
Copy pasta Toma to niche. Copy pasta Toma to niche. I mean, you can, but it's probably not gonna change my like opinion of actual things. And then just because I got a soft spot, I think sitting on it, I think you think the look should be an unplayable.
Personally, yes. I won't. I never see. I won't. I don't see him ever being in a meta relevant deck ever.
So I think just because of soft spot, I'll put him at the top here.
Sure.
Then
I do believe he is the best of the three.
to me, this looks fine mostly. Any
Yeah.
character positions, you would put it this way, but I would.
Wait a second.
That's my pro.
Oh, we're back. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I don't know what's up with the freezing.
I have
doesn't
no
look
idea.
like it
I
should.
honestly have no idea. I did a
It
speed
definitely does
test
the best.
and like it's fine. So
I fear I may be the problem.
nah,
It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. as
it's
my friend.
fine. Shh, don't worry about it. It's the curse. Don't worry about it.
Oh
what
yeah,
are,
my internet went out when I was in Prince Cup. I'm
yeah,
the internet problem guy.
that is actually true. No, so like I was saying is like the use case for Toma is literally he's Pyro Synchro. Literally any deck that wants to use him, as in like any deck that cares about a Pyro like after attack on a normal that doesn't want to use your Emir can just use him. That's why I think he's good, is because he's never bad. Like, there's nothing about his kit inherently that's bad. He generates shields. He does multiple applications after his burst. The only downside I would say is his damage, but then he can still use weapons, so that compensates for it. So that's the only reason I wouldn't put him in niche, is to me he just has too many use cases, and Crab being meta defining and him being Crab's best support to me just pulls him out of niche. Like, just by virtue of how good Crab is, Crab carries. Pyro isn't good as Hydra for that. Yeah, but the Hydra characters with follow-up are like really, really good. So
Yeah, I would personally still put him in niche. I would put him actually at the top of niche, but uh It's your tier list at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'll put him at the bottom of good, where he's just not in niche, but he's just in good. If I could, I would put Hu Tao in meta defining just for the memes, but like I have to be a little bit more like
Well, let's wait until we get to the Dendro tier list. I will have some
Dendro tier list is
words.
gonna be spicy because
I will have some words for a Hytham.
half the characters in Dendro are gonna be like here, and the other half are gonna be in these two top bars. Like that's just where it's gonna show up. The Dendro characters that are good, and the Dendro characters that are bad are like really bad. I think it's the same with Electro, where like the good Electro characters are here, and then it's nothing, and then literally unplayable.
Yep. Both Dendro and Hydro, I will have many words for two characters, Child and Alhytham. I have tried so hard to make them work. They are my favorites, just like Utao is to you, but I cannot put them in meta defining.
So
Even as a meme.
So DX with Pizza Brain Sidewinder, I will make a specific tier for Pizza Brain that I'll say that Pizza Brain is community defining, because like all the memes, all the like emotes, all the everything, Kole is like the face of GITCG at the moment. So like I'll like have a tier above meta defining that's like reality defining or community defining, or just like I'll put somewhere like that.
Yeah, we'll see once we get to it. We don't even know what the next element is, to be fair.
Yeah. I'll probably do Hydro. I'll see, like...
Oh, time for me to say the same thing about 5 different characters about Stole. Let's go. I love Stole.
I know.
Oh, you're gonna be hearing so much about Tenacity of the Millilith.
I think that one, like, I will just let you go, honestly. Like, or we can
You're
do a
gonna just
really
make a Stole tier.
trash... We can do a really trash element. Like, we can do Geo.
That's also you're gonna have a Stole tier. I'm sorry.
So we just have, like, for when we talk about Geo or Hydro, we just make meta defining stall, not stall, and then just like a whole
No.
bunch of blank spaces between them.
Instead of niche, we just make Stole. Because all the niche decks, all the niche characters in Hydro and Geo are Stole.
That's actually true.
But
So
yeah,
I think this is a
that should be about it.
good like ranking for the 18 Pyro characters.
Yeah.
I can see arguments that like one goes down or one goes up here or there, but I think at the end of the day, it's very difficult to make a fully impartial tier list. I think that's just the nature of tier lists, is that you can't end up with it just being fully like impartial, because everyone has preferences or decks they enjoy playing over others.
Yeah. I mean, if it were up to me, I would put Dea a lot higher for preference purposes, but not for objectives.
Objectively, I would put like Hu Tao up here in her own special tier that's like literal game defining or reality defining, because like some of the Hu Tao mains are down bad. Like these people are like exceptionally down bad. So
my reason for putting Dea up higher for personal preference is just I like -1 damage.
that's honestly fair.
Can you tell I love Stole, by the way, chat?
I was thinking, that's the thing, is like she's just not consistently good. I was thinking about putting in consistently good, but she's just not consistently good enough to be not at the top of good. But that side game, Hu Tao. Okay, but look at this cute pose, DX. Look at this. Like, look at this. She's literally doing the silly chill, hilly chill, whatever. She's got the best arts out of any of these. So
yeah, Maxwell, I completely agree with you. Niche doesn't mean bad.
yeah, niche does not mean like, niche just means that they're good, but they're only good in when the meta allows them to be good. The rest of the time they're kind of just sitting there on average.
Yeah, and Thoma's existence outside of it is not my fault. I just want to make that very clear.
You have to have a little bit of controversy in a tier list, right? Otherwise, people don't
Uh,
engage with it.
yeah. Why do you think I put the looking literally unplayable?
That's actually fair. We double down on this. So I think this is it. I legitimately think this is it. I'll take a screenshot of this and post it in the Discord and everything. I'm gonna check because I don't really have much else to do. This stream was literally just going to be podcast style um stuff. And I
Yeah.
want to see, oh no. I had a friend I wanted to raid that came back from a month break, but they've ended already. I'm sad. I will raid somebody else. I will raid my Oshi. For people who don't know what an Oshi is, people in VTuber spaces, basically it's your favorite content creator. They're busy playing Hollow Knight. So, when's the next element? Possibly end of next patch. Um,
Next patch.
yeah. I probably won't do more than one element ranking per patch. I want to try and like um work it out that the first couple videos of a patch in between streams are like gameplay videos and stuff, and then towards the end of the patch when like things are kind of, there's downtime and there's not a lot of like new decks to make or whatever, that's when I kind of want to try and carry out with more topical things like ranking elements or tier lists or you know like just stuff that kind of lasts longer that you can milk.
Yeah. Okay.
Because by the first 3 weeks, I would say of a 6 week patch, everyone's figured out what decks they want to play. Like there's almost no more innovation at that point. So making videos, you do just get lower click through rates. People do just watch less and they're not as interested. So rather figure out something that keeps people interested.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be a dairyman to be a content creator. Like if you're not trying to milk your content, then you're kind of missing something out. Like this video will get condensed down into a YouTube video with a thumbnail and everything. And that'll
I
probably
have
be out
no idea how you're gonna do it
soon.
with how much I ramble.
I'll figure it out. I will legitimately figure it out. I don't know how, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna start the raid. That's the whole link. I'm gonna start the raid on Twitch side so far because that's got a raid timer. The raid
And
message for
for
people subbed. That's the raid message for the people who are not subbed. So here's the link. We'll be heading over. I think Nate does stream on YouTube, but I'm not actually sure. Timing raids between the two are kind of like really, really awkward. But anyways, I'll see you all next time, and thank you for joining me. I really, really appreciate you.
and for those that don't know how the stream works, usually there's gonna be a schedule posted later this at the end of this week, and there's gonna be a stream where he plays through viewer decks. I will be there as well. I'm usually around for the streams. If
Mm-mm-mm.
anybody wants to join the Discord, they can. If anybody's interested in the streams, there will be a schedule. And yeah, if you want to see the next ranking, check the schedules, basically. So yeah,
That's about it.
have a great day, everybody.
Cheers, cheers. And
Yeah, she's always excited to see me. Oh, that's interesting. Hi, Toxie. I need to buy fat burgers.